Are we live yet? Live yet? We're live, we're live, we're live, we're live, we're live. Welcome to the open mic. I'm gonna shut up for a few minutes. Bye. Neil, why don't you say what you just said like a few minutes ago? That was good, man.
Are you talking to me,
No, I was
Cyril?
talking to Neil. I was
Oh,
talking
Neil.
unless you want to repeat it or say whatever or something.
He's quiet now. Neil, are you still there, brother?
Okay, so everyone was talking for like a half hour straight, and the moment I go on the air for open mic, everyone's silent. I don't understand it.
Well, because we didn't expect you to go live right now.
So what? We're live.
This
Open
was
mic.
kind of a private conversation,
I
Cyril.
know. I know, but then it segued into a general kind of topic. So I was like, okay, let's start there.
Hey, brother Bo, how are you?
Bold, brother. Bold. Yeah, we're live on there. Open mic. Say whatever the heck you want.
Hmm. What did I say though, Surreal?
You said something about people not like people thinking that they have the corner knowledge on everything because they picked up a scrummage of knowledge, but they're just absent of actual history or something.
Okay, I forgot what I said that was so knowledgeable. But anyway, I don't think myself as any. I think I'm stupid, right? Do you know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is? Anybody ever told you this Dunning-Kruger? They use it. Flat earthers try to use it a lot. Anyway, basically the Dunning-Kruger, whatever the hell you want to say, effect. It's like basically like this. Everybody that thinks that they're smart is stupid. Just wrap your mind around that. You know what I'm saying? Anybody that says I'm smart, they're usually pretty dumb.
I'm
Anybody,
smart.
you know what I'm saying? So, see, I think everybody is just as stupid as you are. There's certain things that you don't know that the rest of the world doesn't know either. Like, okay, evolution doesn't have an origin story. We're not going to talk about evolution here, but basically, there is no origin story for like anything out in. We can guess at what the origin story is. A lot of people have their own belief system that is attached to what that origin story is. How did life start? What is the meaning of life? These are philosophical questions that science doesn't answer, right? This falls outside of science in a philosophical realm. These are questions like, why do we even think? Like, you can tell me how it thinks, John Lennox style, with the whole baking of the cake. But you know how the molecules and the chemicals work, but you can't tell me why. Why does it think? Why is a philosophical question. I think some people can't separate reality. Some people can't separate the action and the person is where I started this conversation. Right? You know what I'm saying? So, they can't it's a hard thing for somebody to do to separate like material things and other things and the action and the person. You don't associate a person with an action just because they do a certain thing. That's kind of a Christian belief for me, is that, the Good Samaritan kind of story is that he was a good Samaritan because nobody else would help him. They associated the guy that fell down in the cliff with his belief system and didn't want to help him. Right? Yeah. Oh, he's just a dirty guy, blah blah. He should just deserve to die, kind of thing, right? And I'm kind of that way. Like just inside of me, I can't see somebody in the middle of the street trying to like almost getting hit by a car. I'm jumping out of my car and helping them first thing. That's just my instincts. You know what I'm saying? I would think that all humans have these instincts internally. Some things can't be explained by, scientific belief doesn't say that you should go out there and risk your life for another human being. What sense does that make? You know, or it does. It's kind of a morality thing. Like, why do you have these instincts that make you jump out and help other people, or are you just a dick to society and you don't want to help people?
Right. That actually props up a question that I have for you. Why is it that we don't have the instincts to, to just go ahead and lie or something, or to do something sinister?
Well, because usually, and here's the statistic that I've heard, and I'm sorry to say this, and a lot of this is going to piss off a lot of people. I didn't have a father as a child, a whole lot in my life. Fatherless children are the cause of a lot of this problem that we see. There's nobody to guide them through life, and they end up serial killers, and just you wouldn't believe what happens to fatherless children. Just do a statistics run on fatherless children, and you'll find out some horror stories about kids believing in Satan and stuff like that because they don't have any fathers to teach them what's right and wrong. It's crazy that they start to believe in movies and just crazy anything. They latch on to whatever they latch on to, and they start doing that. It's not a common. It's very rare that a religious belief causes murder. But in this case, you've got kids believing in Satan and stuff like that because there's no fathers around. It's not because there's no fathers around. I mean, the fathers may be teaching them Satanism as well, but again, very rare cases. But here again, you're talking about. I was a fatherless child. I didn't know what to think. Until 30 years old, I didn't believe in Jesus Christ. I had no bearing on what to believe. I didn't think I had a purpose or a reason in life. That I was just another human being just living it out, being a socialistic ant on this planet. When you're a Christian, you start to think a little bit differently. You're not just an ant. You're special, and you should help other people. You jump out of your car. You don't think you think differently. Like the old me would have watched that old lady get run over by a car. The new me would.
You know what? I think this also causes me to have another kind of question based on what you were saying, and that is it safe to say that men actually um, establish order and women
Hello.
kind oh, hey, can you hear
Go
me?
ahead. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll just repeat my question. I said, based on a lot of what you were saying, is it safe to say that I guess you could say that men kind of establish a lot more order in the world, and women establish more like life and relationships in the world?
No, I got you. Hey, sorry, everybody left, so we're just here live together for no reason. You
Let me
there?
see.
I don't know
Yeah,
what's going on. Yeah, I didn't
my
hear
phone.
you. So
Yeah. Yeah, did you need me to repeat my question?
no, I mean it's just me and you now live for no reason on your channel. But go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I was just saying, like, I said, I don't know. It just seems like when you were talking about how men are just running wild, and and they're getting into all kind of negative moral activity and religions and all kind of stuff. Um, to my mind, I keep on hearing chaos. chaos, no order, just chaos. But then let's just say that, you know, that these young men do actually have fathers in their lives, but then they don't have any mothers. Well, really,
I
guys,
don't. There's an opposite effect. Unfortunately, I was growing up the different way. I had a mother, so my mother was very grounded in Christianity, not Christianity, but in morals, like in a moralistic kind of way that that people shouldn't murder people, don't hate other races, everybody else is the same as you. I mean, even my dad at a certain point told me everybody's the same on the inside. And you know why he said that? He said, I'm a surgeon. He was never a surgeon, but he used to walk into different rooms and stuff. And I'm like, he said, I might as well have been a medical surgeon for the army because he had seen so many people being opened up. They're all the same inside. The doctors don't care what color you are when they open you up. See what I'm saying? That just kills racism for everybody. For me, anyway. When I was a kid, I'm like, you're right. Everybody is the same. They have the same heartbeat, same skeletal system, same veins, same. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are on this planet. Don't let. Here's my uh, message to humanity. Don't let anybody ever put you down just because you're a certain color, certain race, certain class. If you're middle class, lower class, blah blah. I've been all of those classes. I've been lower class for most of my life. I was living in a house by myself with nothing, with no floors, because I bought like my parents tried to give me a house. I didn't take it, so like I ended up in a house with nothing. Eventually, I was living by myself, like eating nothing. I got so skinny, my parents got worried about me. I'm like, it's just because I wanted to do it by myself. I didn't care about the world. I didn't have Jesus Christ at that point. And I think it changed my mind when I had Jesus Christ that uh, people used to put me down all of my life, tell me that I'm never going to succeed. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you're never going to succeed. That is a lie that the world wants to tell you. That's why I believe in Jesus Christ and the things that I do is because the world wants to put you down and make sure that you don't succeed. And inside of me, what happens is it makes me believe even more in Jesus Christ that should not happen. Nobody should ever tell you that you should not succeed. That is bullshit. You will succeed as long as you put your mind to it. Don't let anybody ever. I have succeeded in the last couple of years more than I ever expected in my entire life because I just put my mind to it. I put my nose to the grind wheel. I didn't give a care. And I did everything that I had to do. And I didn't care what people told me. I didn't care what my bosses and QA representatives, people telling me that I'm doing a bad job or a good job. But the customers spoke for themselves. The customers came back to me and said, we need your personal number. So, I mean,
wow.
I said I can't give out my number because I work for the company. You know what I'm saying? So this is why you just do what you need to do, even though your company that you work for may be the devil or a piece of crap. Customers are going to speak for themselves, and they're going to love you, and you're going to do what you do, and you're going to feel more empowered by that than anything. It doesn't matter who you work for or where you go. You just be you. Be the best person that you can ever be. That's the message. Don't stop. Don't let the world stop you because somebody tells you that you can't succeed because you're a certain race or color or a certain class in monetary means or something like that. That's what I hate. People are like, well, you're lower class and you haven't had a bachelor's degree yet and or master's. I'm like, okay. And you have BS'd your way through life. I get it. That's how either you succeed, you don't have to BS your way, just do what you're going to do, and you'll succeed. God will take care of you. Don't rely upon what your monetary gain is for your judging on how good you're doing in life, because that's not a good way to judge your life going. Monetary gain has nothing to do with how good you're doing. Money comes and goes. It always will. Donald Trump lost a lot of money, but look, he's still a billionaire.
A lot of questions are coming up on that subject, because that is very encouraging. If you could say
I
that
just hate this
5 more times
man.
in a
Like
row, that um,
SJWs, feminists,
I,
Black Lives Matter. All these people are just all these people whining about Trump. I'm like, listen, your situation was effed up before Trump became president, and you know it.
right. And before we even like continue on with Trump and wherever else he had to go, I had a question. What do you do um, when there are individuals in the world who do suffer from self-esteem issues, right? Let's just say
Listen,
that perhaps
I'm
they
white.
have.
I'm white in my 30s. I suffer from self-esteem issues all the time. I have a 2-year-old kid and a $30,000 student loan debt that I'll never pay off for the rest of my life. That causes a lot of emotional kind of issues for me. You'll never be able to pay off any debt that you've ever accrued. Like, go ahead, go get a credit card. I imagine you're in debt right now. Everybody in America is in debt. That causes social anxiety because you feel like you're more in debt than other people. You know, it all adds up eventually. You're like, oh, these people are succeeding. And it leads to this false image of people that are rich. Like, I mean, any rapper that you've ever heard. I love rapper. I love rapping, by the way, and I love like rap music and stuff. So my friends come over here and you know throw down freestyles all the time.
Yeah,
But yeah.
also mentioned your 2-year-old son. So, my next question was, what is the toughest thing about being a parent, and what are some things that that may be tough, and no matter what you do, that they'll never really kind of go.
It's tough trying to control the situation all the time. You can't always control if somebody says the F word around your son. You may be in a public place and somebody says some really obscene words, and you can't just get up and say, "Hey, my 2-year-old son." Back in the 50s, that might have worked. See what I mean? Nowadays, you get up and tell somebody, "Hey, my kid's here. He's 2 years old. Please stop cursing around him." They will get in your face and start cursing at you. Some people will, and said, "I have freedom of speech, and you can't stop me. And I will curse all around your son all I want." And they might even be thrown out of the establishment. But
Wow.
if you're on public property and they start cursing at you, you're going to have to call the cops, and it may take the cops 10 minutes to get there before, you know. I don't even bother with these people. I just walk away. There's no point. I don't even say anything. I've never really experienced like something like that much before. But my wife, she is ready to go at the teeth, at the throat of whoever's cursing around our son all the time. And I keep telling her, back off, back off. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. She's very protective of our son. When people start cursing around her. And I mean, we may be at a very established restaurant, let's say Chili's or Applebee's or somewhere, and you got a bunch of people cursing and stuff like that. She's like, I'm about to tell the waitress something. I'm about to tell the waitress we're about to leave. He can't hear all this stuff. And I'm like, you're right. Maybe we should just get up and leave without saying anything. That would be the Christian thing to do, right? That's usually what we do.
Right. So when it comes to your wife, and you can still talk about your son as well.
Right.
Um, what is like some of the toughest things that you experience when you were first married?
We had a lot of disagreements on how to raise him, but eventually we now agree. Like, I even talked to her about that today, and she said, "You don't have to reassure me. I know everything that you said, and it's not because you're forcing me to believe it, it's because I believe it." And what I told her is, we need to have a kind of uniform way to talk to our son. We don't need to have two different sides. The problem with the way that I was raised is my mom would tell me one thing and my dad would tell me a different thing. You know what I'm saying? And I said, that doesn't need to happen with our son. We need to tell him the same thing. You know what I'm saying? That it's bad to do this. It's good to do this. It's say hello, be nice to people, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so I guess another thing that I would ask, or I guess one thing I would say is, I mean, yeah, it definitely is like important to be like on one accord with, your significant other, because I definitely know that that seems to
Let me tell
be.
you one thing before you go on. I was raised in a very, very bad way. My mother used to get the shit beat out of her every day by my alcoholic uh, firefighter stepfather for 7 years of my life. She had a hysterectomy and was kicked in the crotch after the day that she had a hysterectomy
Oh my
by
gosh.
my stepfather. Yeah,
Um,
he
um,
also broke my ribs one day, kicking me out of bed when I think I was about 12. Broke my ribs, kicking me out of bed. He was that drunk. He said, "Get up and go clean the fish outside."
oh my God.
With broken ribs, I went outside and cleaned the fish, and you know what happened? I ended up falling off of the dock into the water and splitting my head on a barnacle so hard I still have the scar from it.
Wow.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, so I used to get abused a lot as a child. And then I used to have high school kids beat the shit out of me every day. So, because I was such a pussy after having the shit beat out of me by my father every day. So, yeah,
Tell me, did
it's great.
you how was your confidence and your
Honestly,
self-esteem?
everybody said you're lucky you didn't become a serial killer. A lot of kids like you end up as very demented and twisted. And I'm like, I know, and I used to be that way. I never used to kill. I used to love animals. But the thing was, is I viewed society as disgusting. Like, you know how Smith talks in The Matrix about Morpheus? When he smells him and he says, it smells, the smell. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, but it seemed like everything just is
Oh,
disgusting. You know what I'm
time out.
saying? Yeah. And
If
then I kind of lost that belief after becoming a Christian, like saying to myself, everybody's beautiful and everybody's good,
on his way in.
I just wanted to clarify like what I meant after that by, after becoming a Christian, that changed for me before you went on. Go ahead, yeah.
Wow. No, no, I just wanted to make a short announcement that there seems to be some guy named Wayne Fillmore who
Yeah,
is
Wayne's cool. He's an evolutionist, but he's also a Christian. He's
ooh,
pretty cool. He's very understanding. He actually got kicked out by JJ once, and I was like, or somebody kicked him out of a room one time, and I was like, why? The dude was kicked out by Dawkins Deity out of a room one day.
he kicked me out before. I remember Dawkins
Yeah,
kicked
yeah, Dawkins Deity kicked him out, and I was like, why? Wayne Fillmore is like one of the coolest dudes, and I even told Dawkins Deity live one day, and I told Dawkins Deity, I said, you realize that you just kicked out one of the coolest dudes ever, Wayne Fillmore? He's like one of the coolest dudes ever. I don't know why you would kick him out. You remember that, Wayne?
he's
Like,
totally
you know what
Hey,
I'm
what's
saying?
up, guys?
Hey, yeah, I was telling Dawkins Deity after he kicked you out. I said, you remember that day? And I said, why would you kick out Wayne Fillmore? He's like one of the coolest dudes ever. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it's all right. It's okay.
Yeah. No, I
He
mean
didn't know
you're
better.
like you are though. Like you're one of the most understanding Christian evolutionists that I've ever talked to.
can,
You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
thanks.
can
Yeah.
please tell me exactly where Dawkins deity even came from? Like, I want to know, like, where did this dude even come from out of
He
nowhere?
sounds like he's a salesman. Is where he comes from. He talks to people on the phone all day, and he's even admitted it. He said, "Hey guys, I got to get back to my job on the phone," is what he said. So he sounds like he does a job like me, but he sells people stuff.
Hmm.
And he's very quick. He's very quick witted. He can outwit you very quickly over talking, and he sounds like he has experience in talking. If you hear him, you see what I'm saying. He has very quick-witted response to everything that you say. And he will use every chance he gets to shut you down.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
But I love him because one day I had him and an atheist. You probably know the atheist dude. His name is Ask an Atheist, Sidney Winston.
No, I never heard of him.
Okay, he's pretty cool. Anyway, we were all laughing about me, Dawkins Deity, and Sidney Winston, who have very differing beliefs. We're laughing about Hillary coughing that one day. Hillary was coughing so hard, it was so hilarious. You remember that video where they had her coughing? Whatever your political beliefs are, her coughing was hilarious because, you know, nobody wants a president that's going to be hacking up a lung while they're trying to talk, you know what I'm saying? I know you probably have pneumonia or whatever, but that's probably a bad time to give a speech there, Hillary.
Yeah, didn't you say something about Trump earlier? Now I had heard that he was
Oh yeah.
trying to because I was there's a
I
whole
don't
lot
necessarily love the man. I mean, you know, I think he's great for the country, but I don't think he's the right guy for the country. I think he is right now. The country needs like a system shock, and they're lucky that Ron Paul didn't do that. If you remember Ron Paul, anybody remember Ron Paul? Ron Paul, if Ron Paul would have become president, he would have been worse than Donald Trump. So a lot of people voted for Ron Paul back in the day, and they shut Ron Paul out of the polls. Like on TV, the same thing that they did to Donald Trump, they did to Ron Paul back in the day. Ron Paul was actually leading in the polls, but they didn't ever report it on TV. So that was one of the reasons I think that he lost, is that, you know, and they did the same thing to Donald Trump, but Donald Trump already knew what happened to Ron Paul. So what he did was, you know what I'm saying, I think he reached out to more people than Ron Paul could have physically. And he won more than half of the country voted for Donald Trump. Here's the problem with a lot of liberal voters. A lot of liberal voters think that, oh, New York and LA hold more people in the country, so therefore LA and New York should hold more of the votes. So the rest of the country shouldn't matter when it comes to voting. That doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? The rest of the country is who produces all of the corn, wheat, grain. I mean, the heartland of the country produces everything that you guys in your big cities eat and drink.
Well, I mean, then again,
You
those
know?
jobs do end up fostering a lot of illegal immigrants too. So it gets
Right.
interesting. You know, what here's the thing, like what makes Trump a bad or good president? Because
See,
so
I
far,
can't understand
like they
nothing that they call him
heard
Teflon Don. They've called him Teflon Don for years. The reason he's called Teflon Don is nothing that they can say about him sticks. When they complained about his tax returns, he showed his tax returns, and there was nothing wrong with them. Even Rachel Madcow, the reporter, she couldn't find anything wrong with his tax returns. She built up to this whole thing on the news about, oh, we're finally releasing Trump's tax returns. We're finally releasing, and there was nothing wrong with it. In fact, he gave more to charity than more people ever give. I forgot how much he gave in charity, but he gave a lot in charity. When he released his tax returns, everybody was surprised that they were all legit.
so
So,
here's the thing, like what can you give me a list
of
of
things that he's done
some
wrong.
good things that he's done and all the bad things that people
Okay,
say that he's
I'll say, let me start off with the bad things. The bad things is he probably shouldn't have shut down the airports the way that he did so abruptly. That a lot of liberal thinkers think that's a bad thing, and it probably was a bad thing. But to fix the problem, for me as a software and computer engineer, network designer, person that has an actual degree, the way to shut down the system is that you have to shut it down completely. to make it work. You can't like leave the system running. If there's a huge problem with the system, let's say you have a virus that keeps infecting your system, you have to shut down the system completely so that you can restart it and get it running again. See what I'm saying? A lot of people aren't on board with that idea. They're like, oh, you can't
Right.
shut it down. It's been working so perfectly. It sounds like one of my
Well,
customers. Like when
but yeah,
somebody
like
calls me about internet problems, they're like, well, it's been working for 13 years perfectly. And I keep saying, ma'am, a lot of things have been updated recently. We're going to have to update your modem credentials and probably the lines in your neighborhood and probably your modem as well. Um, a lot of things have changed since 13 years ago.
yeah, but see that's the issue. Like America has been built on this interesting idea of, everything just gets better and better and better. And so there is no actual cycle. When there's no cycle, there's really no recovery time.
And people are
Uh,
pissed when their internet stops
downtime for
working, right?
things actually get better. So how do you end up trying to update things while keeping things alive at the same
Or keeping things running. You can't keep everything running if it's still running off of a dead system that never really worked in the first place. You get what
I
I
mean,
mean?
we're
Yeah.
really gonna have to do like in terms of just where America is. We're really gonna have to do what I call like the speed stunt. Remember that?
That's why he said make America great again is kind of a restart on America. You remember when America, back in the 90s when I grew up as a kid, I was born in the 80s, right?
Yeah, I was
In
born.
the 90s, right? There was the space race. You could go like look at shuttles. You could feel all these different space rocks and different geological materials at scientific museums when you, let's say, 5 to 9 years old, right? You know what I'm saying? You could go to aerospace engineering places. None of this stuff really exists for kids anymore. I understand field trips, but like a lot of these places have died out. There's no more. I don't know how you feel about it, Wayne. And maybe you could explain it more, Wayne. Like, is there any more kind of like stuff like that in the 90s? You remember, in Florida where I existed, there was this place called the Science Museum. Basically, you know what I'm saying? It was a huge science museum that had everything that you could imagine that had to do with science. You could create plastic molds of dinosaurs. You could feel different rocks, geological. It was really a place for a kid to find out what kind of scientist they wanted to be. You want to be a geologist? You want to be an astrophysicist? You want to be it was awesome. I don't know
I
if
think
Wayne is still there. Yeah, yeah. Go
right.
ahead.
I mean, oh, go ahead, go ahead. No, no. What I was gonna say was, I was born in '84, so I remember, we had like go-kart races in my neighborhood every year too. We had a
I mean,
whole.
and they would bring you into Pizza Hut, or I mean, I don't. Nobody wants to start, like, nobody wants to make a career out of Pizza Hut. But at least you can go into Pizza Hut, and they would bring you behind the counter as kids and show you how the shit worked. They don't do this stuff anymore. Excuse my language, but they don't do this stuff. They don't teach kids how things work anymore. It's like almost like it's a secret. Nowadays, if you go to McDonald's, they have the guy, I don't know if you've seen this commercial, the guy from Mythbusters, Graham, the Asian guy from Mythbusters, doing a commercial with McDonald's to prove that McDonald's isn't making fake products. What
Yeah,
has happened?
I mean, yeah, I mean,
At that
that's
point,
where.
you start to think, why do you need a guy from Mythbusters to prove that McDonald's isn't making fake products? When back in the 80s, in the 90s when I grew up, we used to go into McDonald's and make the products themselves, and they used to show us everything,
Well,
how it went from factory to blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? They used to show us the process of everything. Like whether that process was not real or not, that's fine. But at least they let the kids get into the manufacturing thing. You know what I'm saying? And nowadays, it's just not a thing. It's just not a thing. You go to a school, they're not going to tell you how McDonald's is made. Come on. It's a huge conglomerate company now. It sounds like, you ever seen the movie Idiocracy, where there's a huge Costco?
No,
Everything's falling. You got to see Idiocracy. It's awesome. A 90s movie again, dude.
I think that I think that the reason why companies are like that now is because it seems like things are so hyper legalistic, and I think this comes from like cultural Marxism, which is you know the whole notion of another version of political correctness, that it's almost a crime to
No,
uh,
you're right. You're
pretty
right.
much
Yeah.
even say anything, that's legally against something else, or when you have kids coming
Actually,
in the back of a McDonald's,
if
we
you
don't
don't
know what
mind,
they're
I
gonna
have a
find these
friend.
days.
I have a friend that
Because
knows everything about what you're just talking about.
I mean, but just
Uh,
think about it. If in 2017 we were to have kids come into the back of a McDonald's to see how everything goes down, for one, it's totally different from 1981, and they might find some things in there that might blow the company, or not the company because McDonald's is too big, but it might blow that area a little bit. So there's so many reasons why things are so kind of shrouded, while at the same time everything is not a mystery anymore because of the internet. um, I remember I was I work in the schools, and I was talking with a young student, and they said to me, they said, nothing is hidden to me anymore. And I said, well, how does that make you feel? And they said, I don't know. I'm not quite sure yet. But they did say, quote, I know things that I shouldn't know. That is the world of a 9 or an 11-year old, and that's why it's sad, because when I do work in the schools, um, the individuals that you work with, uh, they may be children to your naked eye, but deep down inside, their mindset, depending on what they've learned, can be a lot more advanced than a 10 or 9-year old from 1980 or even 1990. And that's just my experience with working with youth. They're the whole thing is to really try to save their childhood, because it is out of a child's purity that you have clarity of imagination, clarity of expression, clarity of confidence, clarity of identity. You have all this clarity because of purity. And when all that's just shot at an early age, you don't have that anymore. And then they wonder why the kids aren't so creative. And they say, well, they know more things now, so they should be more creative. Like, no, it doesn't work like that with human development. Take a child development course. You don't just give a stage one person stage 10 worldviews. You don't do that. No one should do that. It just stifles the entire process of them learning, and then when they end up learning things that they shouldn't, it's hard for them to process the things that they should at their level and at their stage. But they're too busy trying to figure other things out. um, so I don't know, it throws things out of order, and that's just been my experience uh, when trying to
I think
pretty
as
much about the
everybody that
conversation.
you meet as being intellectually ranked equally, it's kind of like, for me, I feel like I'm stupid. I really do think I am. But a lot of people tell me, Neo, you're not that stupid. And I'm like, yeah, but it's just my simplistic ways of understanding the source of what I'm trying to get to. I'm not trying to use a bunch of euphemisms and big words to understand what everybody else thinks that they understand. So the bigger words that you use, it makes you like less viable. You see, it makes it it's kind of like John Lennox said. You're trying to make something more complicated than it needs to be. Not you, but I mean, a lot of people like to overcomplicate things. If you know what I mean. They're always trying to explain things like, well, you don't understand it because you don't understand this word. That's also a logical fallacy known as, if you know Wayne, you know, as a you can't use that as an argument just because you don't understand or a word in some other person's term, uh, and so do you, so real. That would be a semantics argument, right? Yeah. You can't use semantics forever. Eventually, semantics, that's what it is. Usually, it dies down to semantics. People are saying, well, you don't understand because you didn't use the correct words to understand what I'm saying.
Right, but then but then common sense is literally lurking in the back of both of our minds because we both understand what what I'm saying or what the other person is saying. We just haven't used the key code word that you're legally looking for in order for you to say, okay, yeah, you're right. You know what I'm saying? That's just
Well,
I don't.
that's the difference between being open-minded and closed-minded in a conversation with somebody else.
Oh man, did you say open? I hope there's isn't that like uh
Can you be closed-minded? Okay, even as a Christian, I don't agree with, like, let's say Wayne. Wayne says that he believes in evolution. That's fine. He doesn't say he believes in evolution. He believes it as a construct of science, which is fine for me too. But as soon as you start to explain things that can't be explained by evolution with evolution, that's when it becomes a belief system. So,
I'll just
right,
know I
Wayne?
just know that being open-minded is good. It's the closed-minded people that scare me.
Right.
Now me personally, I have a personal view in the middle, and that is I believe people should be open-minded, but not so open-minded that their brain falls out,
Right.
right? Where all of a sudden you just give up your God-given faculty to understand and connect and relate. Like you don't give that up,
Uh,
So be open-minded, but not so open that you just stop thinking. Don't God gave you the steering wheel. Come on now.
well, okay. What I
What's
was
the saying?
saying.
The saying is
Let me let me
no, go
re
ahead.
Go ahead. Let me reiterate before I forget what I said. Nobody on this planet, nobody is going to agree with you 100% theologically, philosophically, scientifically, etc. Is that true or not? Can I
That's
make
true.
that statement?
No, I think that's pretty much true.
Right.
But
This is what proves God in intelligent design for me.
All right, I'm about to warm up some food, so I'll be
You see
back
what
in
I'm saying?
just a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah. But you see, there has to be intelligence design behind that because that can't be randomness is not caused by randomness. There has to be, and actually, you get where I'm going. The words conflict with each other, Wayne.
take your time. Take your time.
But you know what I mean, though. I mean, we can't just explain everything through science, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. I hope you heard everything that I said, or something that I said at least. That said that there's definitely a disconnect between science and what you believe. Everything falls down to a belief system eventually.
Sure.
I've been told that by multiple very, very smart people that don't think I'm dumb. They're so smart that they're like, Neil, you're not dumb. And I'm like, no, no, I'm dumb. And they're like, no, no, no. Here's the way that you need to view yourself.
No,
Instead of
do you
saying you're dumb, right? You see what I'm saying? they're so smart that they know how to make me think about myself.
Do you have a question? Do you believe you're alive, or do you know you're alive?
Oh, now you asked me one of those questions that we can't ever answer. That's the unknown question. How do you know?
I think it's reasonable to believe that you're
Well,
alive.
eventually that leads to presupposition, by the way. You don't see presup in that at all? Because I can tell you how it could lead to presup.
Oh boy. I'm not really in the precept at all. Not my thing.
I could make it worse for you.
I bet you could.
Said John Lennox to Richard Dawkins in a debate. You didn't see that one? Richard Dawkins said to Richard Dawkins, and John Lennox said, I could make it worse for you. And you know what Richard Dawkins said? He said, I know you can. That's what I saw. See, I used to be an atheist, right? Or whatever you think it is. I used to not believe in God. I never really had a belief. So when I watched that debate, I thought Richard Dawkins won. Until I became a Christian, I realized, I was like, holy crap. At that point, Richard Dawkins admitted defeat. He said, I know you can. And the thing is, the I know you can means like, I don't understand what you're saying. At that point, that's when you defeat your opponent, is when I don't know what you're saying. You're talking about something that I'm not schooled in. Right.
Well, Richard Dawkins, I think I wouldn't even say he's a great biologist. Like I don't know why like he's so legendary. I think the only reason like the atheist community puffs him up so much is because he wrote a couple books, and like the books weren't even like great philosophical. Like,
Well, they call themselves the Four Horsemen.
gosh, what were they? The four unicorns?
Yeah, that's when horses started to evolutionary somehow grow horns out of their heads like rhinos.
It's him, right? Is Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, Lawrence Cross, right? Is Lawrence Cross? Something like
Well,
that.
I want to say Daniel Day-Lewis, but it was Daniel or whatever the hell his name is. The bearded old guy that looks like Darwin. His name is Daniel Dennis. I think.
Oh, he's a neo-Darwinist. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, hey
They
man,
were,
I don't have
yeah,
a problem with evolution. A lot of my friends that I talk to believe in something. In fact, I had a fight with one of my friends, a longtime friend, the other night, and we didn't talk for several days over it because I got to him so hard, and I didn't mean. I said you were my test subject. I didn't mean to, try to defeat one of my friends, but it's not that I defeated him. It's that I took his words literally when he was trying to speak figuratively. Basically, he was saying that I said, does evolution prove any kind of origin of any kind of life or the meaning or whatever? And anything. Like, let's just say, even scientifically, there's no scientific proof. It's not about evolution itself. It's more like there's no abiogenesis is, what I'm saying, we can go along that route and whatever, but there's just nothing there yet. There's no connection basically. So science can do what it does. I think science one day might be able to prove these things, but for right now it becomes a belief system, and I started to chalk him up with other people, and I hate to do that to other people. I don't want to say um, you're just as religious as I am. But I did say that to him, and that's what pissed him off. You see what I mean, though? I mean, at a certain point, it becomes a religion, does it not?
well,
Yeah.
with
back.
hey, is it SS Surreal or is it Surreal or am I pronouncing that right?
Oh, so real.
Surreal. Yeah, this is the first time we met. I've been following your channel for a long time.
He's awesome, man. He's
Oh,
really reasonable. He understands he's not argumentative. He doesn't like want to debate you like me.
Yeah,
He's
I've been
not
following your channel for a
egotistical.
minute because I actually confused you with Faithful to God.
Oh God, don't start talking. Don't mention his name ever again. Anyway, go ahead.
So, but yeah, I was just following your channel because I know people who accept like the Black Hebrew Israelite theology, and
Oh God.
yeah, and so I was
Here
like,
we
let me
go.
look into this stuff and see what they believe or whatever. And like, as I
But
kind of figured, it was like pseudoscience and pseudo history.
All right, you guys are
As I
awesome.
figured.
But I'm a white guy, so I'm gonna shut up now. Go ahead.
yeah, that was a question you had. What was it?
Well, no, my question is this: what's this thing that the Hebrewites are going on about Negro land? I made a video on it, and like I couldn't find any evidence supporting that it's a real place.
Did you just say Negro land?
The land of the blacks.
You gotta be kidding. Okay, listen. I've had these conversations with a lot of people. They keep saying that every person that came out of the Bible during the, you remember crossing the Red Sea, all of those people were black. Is that the argument that I think that you're?
No. Well, it's kind of similar. Their argument is that, well, yeah, they do think the people who wrote the Bible were black, but their argument is people who are in Africa or something like that. They're not really from Africa. They're Israelites, and the people we see, the people in America now, their true origin story is that they're from Israel. They fled from Israel to Africa, and then from Africa, they got transported to America.
Just like Muslims don't think that they're from Jewish origin. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's the story, and they're sticking to it. In the
Right,
words
but
of Method Man.
there's an issue with that.
Yeah, you see, it's the same kind of thing. Muslims
Right.
don't think that they're Jewish.
Problem with that,
Right.
hold on, am I being talked over? Or, and I hate this phone, but anyway, like, yeah, there's an issue with that. Like, there's a book that I read from all the time. I read all these quotes, and the book is From Africa to Timbuktu by Rudolph Winsler. And basically, he just goes through the whole history of, blacks in the Bible, blacks throughout Africa, of course. We're talking about the Jews, right? And all throughout just the
Well, Jewish is a race and a religion, by the way.
That's a good point.
it's really just a religion. It's not even a race. So the issue is they can't say
Well,
that.
Hitler thought it was a race. Go ahead. Yeah.
Right. So the issue is you can't just say, oh, you know, the Jews, we are the Jews, and this is our line, and we're all from Shem. Nah, the people that are in America are Africans, African Americans. That's what they are.
Why are you fighting over land? I can't understand. Like, I thought the land wasn't like. Is that a part of the Old Testament to contest land?
Well, I mean, now you're getting into something else before I even fully answer the question, but I'll just say it anyway. Like, uh, it really has a lot to do with identity. You know what I mean? When we were brought over into America, we were stripped of everything, and so this is the reason why you see just a lot of Hebrew Israelites just crave
Uh,
religion so much because it's like,
I mean, you say we like you're one of the slaves that came over on the boat, though.
Well,
right,
Yeah.
I know.
we are their descendants.
Yeah, a descendant. That doesn't mean
No,
that you
like,
haven't enjoyed all of the American things that we've, tried. Like the American people, at least, have tried to compensate for that. I mean, what do you
right.
want? War, reparations? I mean, I don't understand that. What do you want white people to pay for slavery for today?
Well, I'm gonna be
Right.
they actually do still owe us that 40 acres to mules. So
So
No,
white people today, like white kids today that are like 6 years old, owe you reparations and your kids reparations for the shit that
no.
you know what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
yeah, right. I mean, that's totally insane, and so that's the thing. Like a lot of African Americans.
Why should white kids like me? I grew up in the '80s. Why should an '80s kid have to pay for something that happened back in the 1800s? It doesn't make any
No,
sense.
not you,
Yeah.
not you. But I'm just talking about like the government didn't keep up on. They didn't make good on their
Listen,
promise. So.
I'm just as poor as every one of you and everybody else. I endure the same system that crushes black people and white people. It doesn't matter what color you are. I owe a 30 grand debt to society for a college loan that put me in debt for $30,000 for a networking degree. All you have to do is say, okay, I'm willing to accept that debt. Unfortunately, a lot of people nowadays, even myself, don't want to accept that debt.
Right.
Hey,
So I was
is that a server? Or, oh, I'm sorry. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, right. So I was trying to, answer your question and everything. And yeah, I agree a lot of what you say. Like, we shouldn't just go around looking at 6-year-olds and people around here today and say, oh, you know what? You're the problem and you owe us this. I totally agree. That's ludicrous. That's insane. What I was saying is
That's
that
because we're all in the same middle class society or lower class society. We're lower class. It's called class warfare, is what you're looking at.
right, right.
Class
So
warfare.
the reason why you have, you know, craving for you have the Israelites craving for land so much is because that's just another extension of their identity. So once again, you're looking at African Americans that have been stripped of their culture, their identity, basically their land, all of that. And now all of a sudden what they do is
By
they
American society that teaches them that Lil Wayne and rappers. And listen, I grew up in the same society. Listen, they want to teach you that amassing a huge amount of money and owning a Lamborghini is the American dream. Unfortunately, all the shit that they show you on TV and the things that you think you can amass, you never will. They
right.
given you a fake image to succeed at, and you never will do that. And that's the problem with society nowadays is that a lot of people, whether no matter what color you are, it doesn't matter what class you're in, they give you a fake image of what you're supposed to achieve.
Right. So that's I remember
So,
hearing from a Brazilian historian. He said, one of the issues is that when you're under oppression so long, you're just gonna go ahead and just want to live the dream of whatever your oppressor gives you or whatever. So
Mm.
I definitely agree that like people who
by the way, that's George Carlin said that called the American Dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
I love George Carlin.
right. So like I was saying, like a lot of the quote unquote Hebrew Israelites, they'll just bypass that whole fake dream of owning a bunch of cars and being like Lil Wayne, and they'll go straight for just looking into the Bible and wanting to be an Israelite and wanting to claim land. And look at what that feeds. That feeds the people who have been stripped from their land. Then all of a sudden you have the
It's called a cult. It's called a cult.
exactly.
You might as well just say it's a cult.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
exactly. But look at what I'm pointing at because you were wanting to know why they crave what they crave, right? So that's what happens. So when you
oh, I'm just asking you the updated information on the BHIs because I already knew. You told me, and G-Man and Kent Jones and everybody else. They know. They've talked to these people on the street, face to face in New York. G-Man
well,
did.
I mean,
You seen
yeah, but
that? You seen it
I sort
with Bechtel?
I
Uh,
mean the well, I mean, I sort of see what you're saying, but if you really did know, as you said that then I think you would have said that first, like what I just said right now. But
Well, what I do know, see, now you're putting me in a different category, but what I do know is I know an Israelite that says I'm an Israelite And I don't care if you're black or whatever, you can be an Israelite. You just have to be from a certain area. You have to be a certain type of person. You have to believe that you're higher than like Christians in a way that you're kind of part of a group of people that is supposed to look out for Christians.
Right.
That's
So
the way. That's the way a lot of other black, not black Hebrew Israelites, but Israelites that I've talked to, told me that they're the group that helps Christians, no matter what color they are. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
that's something that I totally disagree with. You know, that
Me
they're what
too.
they call help is actually just actually trying to take them like out of the church. You know, so
Right.
they're saying we Israelites are here to help the Christians understand and to really wake up. I'm like, no, like, you know, this all goes back to the question
No,
that you,
no,
which was,
no, no. I mean, like, I personally knew a black guy who was an Israelite, and he said, I grew up like in Israel. He was one of those guys, you know,
oh,
and he said, over there we help Christians. We don't put them down and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
It doesn't matter what, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what type of Christian they are. It's just they were being oppressed by other groups, like let's say Muslims or whoever, you know, at the time, like recently, so that they were trying to protect Christians
I
from
see.
other groups. You know what I'm saying? So that was the whole point of
Like,
being an Israelite, was to help other people. They
I
don't
see.
think that Christians are lower than them in heaven. You know what I'm saying? So the whole Israelite belief was that they were kind of angels or somebody here to help Christians and other people that wanted to believe. You know,
Okay. Right.
it's not like a Judaic kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Right.
but yeah, sir, I see where you're getting. Like, black people like today, they believe in this type of like theology because it kind of like helps them resonate with their pain. Because you and I say this a lot. Like, I I think a lot of people are starting to believe this stuff because it might be like maybe they have hidden racism in the heart, or like they feel some type of way because, like you said, like black people have been stripped of their land. So like black people, like they don't necessarily have an identity. I mean, you could go and you can find out who you are by getting a DNA test, right? You can find like where you're from in the world, which tribe you come from, and like who your ancestors were. But it's a lot easier to just like open up like the page of
Right.
the Bible and make it up.
I mean, I'm telling everybody, and I say this a lot. I have I have I have hardly any white friends. Most of my friends, like 20 or more of my friends, are black people. That doesn't matter, though. That doesn't prove me as better of a person or not. It's the area that I live in that I happen to know more black people than white people. Where I used to live in Florida, I used to know more white people than black people. So I mean, that really doesn't matter. It just depends on your geological location. Um, it doesn't matter what your ideals are either. I mean, you could meet people all across the planet. Imagine being a planet traveler, you know, and you're flying on a plane, going to different areas and tasting different foods. Let's say you're a food guy, right? You know what I'm saying? You're tasting. Those people don't care what color you are, just as long as they eat your fucking. Yes, you know, they just want you to enjoy their food and make sure that it's the greatest on the planet, and report back to other people and tell them, hey, this is a great place to go. I mean, you see, the problem is a lot of people like to strike up. Well, only white people like to eat white people food. That's no, you see what I'm saying? It's like black people don't eat mayonnaise. I know a lot of black people that eat mayonnaise. You know what I'm saying? So
well,
they try to create this, you know, this weird kind of false dichotomy kind of thing. I say
Right.
false dichotomy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
But you know what's interesting though? I think some of the things that Hebrew Israelites, and I'm no expert on the theology, but one thing I do know about is that they're kind of like Jehovah Witnesses. They deny things like the Trinity and all that. So when they talk about like trying to supposedly help Christians, I would say that's one way to help them.
Exactly.
And but of course, I remember when we one time had a conversation with a Hebrew Israelite or whatever.
Hey,
And
what's up, brother? God bless you, by the way. I haven't ever met you before. My name's Neo. Yeah.
nice to meet you. God bless you. My name is LC.
Wait, y'all two have never met?
I've never met him. He sounds like he's hung out with Christian anarchists since he has that avatar. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I have. I mean, him and I have our theological differences, but him and I can.
I've been here since the inception of Google Plus and Hangouts, since Nadia. I've been here when Google Hangouts was a thing, and unfortunately, Christianity has taken a hit over the years since I've been here. Since 2000, I can't even remember when Google Hangouts, what was it, 2011, 2010, or something like that? Oh my God, it was insane. You wouldn't believe it, man. Like, we've been through hell and back with these people. You will get people trolling you. I mean, right now, I don't even want to say it. Sniping is still an issue,
Well,
by the way, Antonio.
well, can I say this, dear brothers? First, I want to say peace and blessings to all of y'all, even though I put that on the platform.
God bless you.
Here's what I see. Bless you also. Um, I've dealing with the IUIC and dealing with the ISUPK and looking at the various different camps. Um, and some of the moderate Israelites, brothers and sisters, some of them are nice people.
Some of them are.
Uh,
I know personally. I know moderate people personally that are Israelites that disagree with BHIs. Honestly,
Mm,
yeah.
yes, definitely. And so, like as I was saying, some of them are nice people, everyday people like the rest of us as well. But the ideology, the theology is all messy, because I've looked at it and like literally looked at their doctrine. It's a combination of messed up theology. You have a little bit of Christian, you have a little
But
bit of
wait,
Judaism.
let's back up, because that's not really the problem. What you were talking about earlier. We have a brother that I don't want to name,
Well,
and
well,
another person
well,
that
yeah.
is actually the opposite of that. He's the opposite of that. I'm not going to name. There's a lot of people like him that are the opposite of that have their own new doctrine. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're
Well, I
not
will
if
agree.
you're not
I
BHI, you have to
definitely
be
agree.
this way.
I
You know what I'm saying?
definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
Hey,
It's
what's
it's
going
kind
on?
of an
Well, I definitely
anti-BHI
agree with
doctrine.
you. What I'm
Yeah.
What's going
really bad.
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Um, well, I definitely agree with your point. You're absolutely dead on. What I was going to say is, looking at their doctrine is it's a combination of Jehovah Witness on the slide. I see, and I said this a long time ago, that within the group, the Hebrew Israelism group, there is no true responsibility and accountability. When I talk to some of the moderates, not all of them, but some of them, they do not look at the fact that accountability and responsibility needs to be taken. When I ask them certain questions, did the Christian doctrine or Christians themselves birth out the one Westers? Because it's almost like a few. You got the moderate Hebrew Israelism, and then you got the one
Right.
Westers. The one
Right.
Westers are completely radical. And so they do their best to try to separate themselves from that. However,
See.
I tell them
Yeah.
before you can do
Right.
this,
Right.
you need to look at your doctrine as a whole.
Right.
Your doctrine gave birth to the one
See,
Westers.
I see
So the
Christian.
fact of it is,
Yeah, I see Christianity as kind of a whole of the body of Christ kind of thing. You know, I don't care what you believe. It's not a universalist kind of belief. It's more like of a non-denominational belief. You know what I'm saying? I think
right, it's a
most
faith.
most Christian,
It's just a
it's
faith.
really about like believing in it, like that. For me, it's a personal thing. It has nothing to do with how
Hmm.
you were raised, because I wasn't necessarily raised Christian. So, I mean, to
Mhm.
say what kind of belief, I was never Baptist, I was never Lutheran, I was never, you know what I'm saying? I never really believed in a denomination. The church that I went to was not denominational. I didn't even like that church, honestly. So, you know, it's kind of, for me, it's just the belief in Jesus Christ as a whole, uh, you know,
Mm.
that people believe that he can save you from your suffering, your sins, and everything that you cry about every night. Anything that you suffer from, he can save you from that. That that is
Mhm.
that is that is what Christianity is about. For me personally, is that Jesus Christ wants to save you. He wants to help you. And if you don't give up all of your pain and suffering to him, you are going to suffer.
Uh-huh.
That's yeah.
And he wants everyone to, and he wants to help everyone, not just the elect.
Right, but see,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
not
they
not
don't.
not
A
yeah.
lot of them don't believe that, especially the one Westers. They're believing that Christ is. They done made up this image, and not to mention, oh, he's gonna put all of the other
Well,
nations in slavery
how do
and
you
all of this
start being a
craziness.
Christian? Are you just born a Christian, or you can never start being a Christian? That's what my thing is. For me, is like at age 30 I started to become a Christian. By the way, Jesus Christ did what he did at age 30.
Mm,
He started his ministry there.
mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it perfectly matches up to me that age 30, and around that age is probably where most men and women start to
Well,
like
see those.
have an epiphany.
Well, see those.
I don't know if you had that epiphany before. You know what I'm talking about? That epiphany moment where like a gear clicks in your head and you all of a sudden start to understand how life works. You know what I mean?
Well, see
I imagine it.
these key points that you're bringing up, they completely ignore that. They don't go to that. I mean, it's like they totally dismiss it.
It's
They
because they're indoctrinated.
exactly.
That's what.
A lot.
So
Yeah, I mean, of course, I would always say that. I would say that lots of people are occultists, even though they don't like to call themselves that. I mean, even Hitler was an occultist in some.
What I believe in Jesus Christ that has nothing to do with what anybody ever told me in my entire life except for believe in yourself. You can do it. You don't stop. Don't stop living life. Do what
Right.
you want to do. My mother told me that all of my life, and finally there's a gear that clicked at age 30 in my life, maybe age 29 I think it was. It just went click, and it said, "You're going to do whatever you're going to do." That's when I started to believe in Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, I said, "Please help me." I begged him, "Succeed my life. I will give all of it to you. All of my monetary and physical gains and everything that's materialistic to me, you can have it all. I don't need it. You can have my empire of dirt." You know that song by Nine Inch Nails? You can have my empire of dirt. I'm done with it. I don't need it. I don't need these. Solomon said that in the Bible. It
Yeah.
all turns to dust.
Hmm.
You know, don't live your life off of whatever you've gained. That is not a good way to judge your life.
Hmm.
Right.
Hey guys, I got some things I want to show just to show you guys where like this whole Black Hebrew Israelite thing actually came from. So give me like
Yeah.
60 seconds.
Yeah, and then I kind of like to talk about an. And I kind of like to talk about
But
another.
then again, BHIs, that's what they do. Monetary gains, being a certain color, that is
Well,
a clutch, you know.
it's open mic night, so y'all can talk about whatever the heck you want.
I was just saying that being a certain color gives you a certain power over other people, doesn't it?
Somewhat, it seems like that is the case nowadays, unfortunately. But um, but it just seems like nobody really pays attention to the kinds of things people say in racism. And I would say racism works both ways, and it seems like racism is really more against the white.
Oh
community.
no. Black people can't be racist according to NTV. I'm not messing with you.
According
Go
to
look it up on yeah.
You know they got that like from the conscious community, right?
Well, her name is Fanny. She's a black girl with dreads. That on her name is Fanny on MTV. Black people can't be racist. Not messing with you. Look it up.
you're kidding. Please tell me you're joking.
Oh, you think it gets worse than that, right? There's a dude with long hair that dresses like a girl that says that he's a lesbian and he has sex with his girlfriend and he's a lesbian. His name is Justin, and he speaks for the transvestite community and says that he's trans, even though he's a dude with long hair that has sex with a female
That makes no
that
sense.
claims that he's a lesbian.
That makes
What?
Yeah.
Man, what? That don't. What? Okay, could you explain that? That don't make sense.
That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, man.
Oh, I can give you a video
None.
on it. There's a dude named Bering that tears him down all day.
Okay.
Dude, his name is Bering. Go ahead and type in Bering. Berang. Bering. Basically, Bering destroys all of these feminists, SJW. I mean, these people are insane. They've got people saying, there's this dude called Wrecked Feminist Videos that says, "What's up, cunts?"
Oh boy.
He's an Australian. He doesn't care because he's an Australian and any kind of laws don't apply to Australia.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
So
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Any kind of laws that you could you could say the C word, the B word, the N word. In Australia, there's no jurisdiction over that. It's like Batman flying to Australia. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody, you have to have, nobody can give them any kind of laws. It falls outside of the UN. The UN doesn't care anymore. By the way, the UN it has been destroyed by Brexit. So
I actually saw Batman fly to Australia with my own eyes.
it's awesome, man. You got to see the world is changing. The world is becoming so anti-politically correct.
Anti-politic. You mean anti-politically incorrect?
Yeah, basically, everybody that says anything can get away with whatever they want to get away with because of international borders and laws don't apply to them, and they never have.
Wow.
You could say whatever you want to say over the internet. Like literally, you could say, "Hey, cunt, you fag," whatever you want to, the N word, anything.
And
There,
I just want to say
yeah.
peace to the panel. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Cool.
Mark, I don't think we've met before. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, man. Yeah, I'm kind of new to all this stuff, so.
But basically, if you go on YouTube, you'll find people saying that all day. They say that all day.
So we're trying to say something.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
who, me?
No.
So real. It's his room.
Everybody meet Marco Polo.
Hey, Marco Polo, where are you?
Yeah, again, peace to the panel, man. Peace.
Peace and blessings.
God bless y'all.
So
where are you?
What were you saying? So you were saying something earlier, and like, I was thinking about the same thing, but I never could really put it into words about like the philosophy behind why Black people are so accepting to this theology, and I do think like it comes from a place of like hurt, and Black people are searching for their identity, and like it is true, Black people don't know who they are, right? And so like they try and search out their identity in Hebrew theology, but like why don't Black people get a DNA test and like find out which tribe they're from? I mean I know it's not What you say?
Yeah, mainly because they, like I said, you have to look at how things have been passed over generationally. So 200 years ago, there was no such thing as, oh, I'm going to go ahead and get a DNA test.
By the way, I'm Irish, and Irish people went through slavery too. Go
Right.
ahead.
And
Well, I understand that, but I'm trying to, but so like I was saying, there was no such thing as, oh, I'm going to go ahead and get a DNA test, but I still want to know who I am. I got this Bible here. Let's see what that says. And next thing you know, people start comparing what the Bible is showing about what people are going through in the Old Testament, and they compare that to themselves. And next thing you know, they're like, "Oh, well, I believe we're the Israelites." That's what you have. You have that being passed on from generation to generation. That's coming up against these newer ways of finding out who you are, right? And so this is where the DNA test comes in, right? Where we now have technology to go ahead and do these things. So you have this quagmire of, old ways of how people did things and new ways of how people did things. So yes, you
Yeah,
have,
but that's not Christianity.
I know, you're right, but I'm just trying to point that
Yeah.
he's asking. But yeah, so like that, so that's the issue. They've been stripped of a land, so our land is Israel because we need an identity. We've been stripped of our culture and all this stuff, so I'm an Israelite, I'm not an African, but yet they say we have self-hatred issues.
So I'm better than white people.
Right, and so you've been enslaved by Europeans and whites, right? And so now you look at your Bible and you say, you know what, we're going to be the enslavers in the afterlife, and we're going to make them pay when we have our kingdom, like that. So it's all just a reactionary kind of false doctrine, right? I mean,
Right.
Well, I get that. The King James Bible existed in a time when slavery was a thing. Right.
yeah.
That's the one thing. Whenever I cite the King James Bible, they said, you're citing a slavery racist Bible.
I mean,
You know,
that's like there's no such thing as racism in a King James Bible. Like here's one thing I did want to show. The reason why I have this up right now, can everyone see this?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, like this is basically where this whole kind of Black Hebrew Israelite thing came from. It came from something called British Israelism, right? And you can look up people like John Dee. You can look up other people from 1590, and they basically came up with this idea of, well, we're the true Israelites. And the reason why the British people came up with this stuff is because during that time they were traveling basically around the world. And when they came into these other cultures, they really didn't know what to do with them. And this is during a hotbed time where people were really skeptical of the Bible. And so what do
see,
you
but here again, let me go ahead and reiterate. I honestly think almost all, if not all, true Israelites are dead.
do? Well,
That's kind of like my little kind of belief here is that over years of bombing and trying to kill the wrong enemy of the U.S. and other people and Muslims and the whole Christian wars and everything, we've been targeting the wrong people. And here's what happens, right? Here's my little spiel. Um, the Muslims, you remember the first Crusades?
yeah,
Yeah,
look at
that's
that.
what. Yeah. So see what I'm saying? Go
let's
ahead. Yeah.
let's let
Yeah.
him his bit first because he was kind of in the middle of a sentence.
yeah,
I
that's
was
okay.
just trying to bring it back to where it all began. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, yeah, even though you're trying to do that, like it somehow kind of gets like off topic, but I
I
don't know.
honestly think it's on topic because this is where everything started to kill off the original people that actually believed in what you're saying.
Well, for you to say, well, you believe that, all Israelites are just, or Jews.
No. I'm saying that the real people, like the real Israelites, you know what I'm saying, have probably been replaced by
By
people that say, you know what I'm talking about?
So right. So you're saying that the real Israelites, whoever they are from hundreds of years ago, or whatever, no longer exist.
They probably do, but they probably don't say a whole lot anymore because they probably face so much persecution. They probably don't want to say.
Right. Actually, kind of go against Jeremiah 31, I think, because there's somewhere where it says that the only day that the Israelites or you guys will cease from being a people is when the sun stops working and the stars
Right,
fall.
right.
So, you know,
I'm
so
just saying, to me, I think that there's a certain point after so many years of Muslims and Christian wars and some of this stuff has been changed over time. There probably is still a group of people that are the real Israelites by blood. You know what I'm saying?
well, two things. One, one thing really didn't even matter, but two, the fact that you say probably, it really just makes me look at
But it has to be a very small group of people after all of the crap that's happened over many of years. I mean, the, I really do think that okay,
okay, yeah, I mean, just not
The U.S. has been bombing the wrong the U.S. has been bombing people
I
that
think
are the real people.
I think that the fact that you end up saying that there's a difference between probably and a very small amount. See, a very small
Very
amount means that okay, I still believe God can go ahead and do what He says.
right.
Probably means I think God might be wrong.
Right, I think there's a very small amount of people that are actually true Israel, true God-given Israelites.
Right, but that's the thing. What exactly makes you an Israelite? Because if you say it's that's not
Well, it's not because of man. It's not because man has bombed the crap out of them, or it's because God permits them to live on this planet. And a lot
no,
of
no,
people,
you didn't actually answer my question. I said
yeah,
I asked what makes you an Israelite? Because you said blood, and when you look at the Bible, the Bible
right.
doesn't show you.
No, I really do think it's actions. Um,
Decision, man.
a lot of the Israelites, like the true Israelites that I've talked to about four. I'm not messing with you, man. They tell me that they are Israelites, that they come from a country that they are Israelites, and they believe that they are here. And I said, uh, the first two I met, I was not a Christian. The last two I met, I was a Christian, and I told them I'm a Christian. They said, "Well, I don't believe believe in Christianity." They actually forced me and told me believe in Jesus Christ. That was insane for an Israelite to tell me to believe in Jesus Christ. He said, "You need to believe in that. That is something to believe. Don't believe in the material world." He told me that. Two people told me that. It
What
got
was
to be
what was
something.
what was so,
Yeah.
so,
I
so
definitely
Rick,
understand.
what were you about to present? Cause I was interested. What you had something you were about to share?
Yeah, I want to see that
Mhm.
too, man. If you don't mind.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you talking about that slide I had up?
Yeah. Like what was that all about? Like keep going.
Oh, okay. So basically, here I'll just go ahead and get it back up. Let me see here. I Neo left, and I can understand why. Um, I, I think he's a cool guy. I think he'll just have to learn how to, I guess, flow with a conversation a lot more. But really, what I was going through is, and this has a lot to do with something I'm trying to bring out as a presentation. But when you start to look, you start to see that the Europeans that end up going into these other places and they had no clue where these people came from. For example, there's a guy from 1640 who his last name is Manasseh, something Ben Manasseh. I think it's Joseph Ben Manasseh or something, and he ended up putting the idea out there even more that perhaps the people across these seas are the lost 10 tribes. The reason why they did this is because this is during a time where people were beginning to be skeptical of the Bible, because they were finding out all kind of stuff: the Age of Enlightenment, the rationalist movement, um, the epistemological certainty, and Darwin, all these things. I mean, it was wild, wild west of whatever you could find and throw it against the Bible. And so people are like, look, if you can't explain to us these cultures and people over here in the Americas and in Brazil or something, then and the Bible doesn't say anything about them, then who are they? Because if you don't give us an answer, then maybe there's more to this whole thing than what we thought was in the Bible. And so people were like, well, no, maybe they have to be the 10 lost tribes. That's what they actually thought. And not only that, but when this started to get up in the chains into the political and the elite areas of the Europeans, they took this idea as an opportunity to pretty much have religious rule all over the world. When you speak about things that eventually turn into Zionism, this is where it comes from, right? Everyone knows that Zionism was basically thought up by some of the Jews that were saying, you know what, we've been kicked out of every place that we've been to for the past 1,000 years. We need to just have a place of our own so we won't be kicked out anymore. Zionism. So all of a sudden they started going back to Israel, or at least they're trying, right? This is another influence of that. But and now it's kind of mixed in with this whole thing of, well, we are God's chosen people and we will rule with the nations. And they start reading the book of Revelation. I will give you rule over the nations with a rod of iron. And they started to think, well, we are the descendants of King David, because look, man, we got rule all over the world. So the British Israelism movement was sparked off by how much they ruled and how much God was quote unquote blessing them. And the Black Hebrew Israelite movement came in with the curses of Deuteronomy 28, right? Saying that, oh, we know that we're these 12 tribes because of how these curses fall on us. So it's funny that the people of the South end up saying we're the Israelites because of curses. Meanwhile, the people of the North, they're saying, oh, we're the Israelites because, David ruled, and so we're ruling. And, I mean, it's insane. I've heard them say things like, well, Ephraim or Manasseh is Great Britain because Manasseh and Ephraim, one of them was called Great. And so therefore, that's the reason why they were called great. Look why we're called great. We're called Great Britain. I mean, they do all kind of stuff. And so this whole notion of even a 12 tribes chart that you even see here, that was not invented by the one Westers in the 1960s by Aurea, right? He's the one that everyone, basically says invented the chart. Well, where do you think he got that idea from? Because to tell you the truth, the Christian identity movement got sparked off in the 1930s. Now, right now, I'm only giving you cliff notes because I don't have the actual notes in front of me in all my studies. I haven't turned it into a PowerPoint yet. But from the 1930s all the way till the 1960s, when the Hebrew Israelite movement ended up starting, they already had like Christian identity movements through the Ku Klux Klan. So they had 30 years of theology to feed from. which is the reason why I believe that perhaps Arya knew about this, looked at it, and just made it black. But meanwhile, the 1930s, the Christian identity movement, the guy who started that was basically a former British Israelis himself. So it was nothing more than a break off of the British Israelism movement that was as early as the 1640s and 1590s. You know, but they each have their different reasons as to why they do what they do. This is the reason why you have all kind of things about this whole seed doctrine. So when they looked at those races over there and they didn't know what to conclude about them, some said, well, they're not from the 10 tribes, right? Brazil, when they went over there, Montezuma, whatever. They said, well, where are they from? Well, maybe they're from like the seed of Satan or something. Because if you actually look at a lot of old theological heresies, one of them was that Eve actually kind of had sex with the serpent, and it spawned off these other kind of people that were human but were not human. And so all of a sudden now you have biblical racism, right? The curse of Ham. Oh, they were cursed to be black, this and that. So now you have biblical racism going around. And they say even, well, look, you have the Nephilim who had sex with the daughters of men. So maybe that's where they're from. So this is where this idea comes from that, okay, we're the chosen people of God and we're from Jacob, but they're from Satan, or they're from Esau. They're subhuman. They're something else, right? It's called the two seed doctrine. You should look it up sometime. I believe it was it was a Christian identity movement that actually made that up. So it wasn't even the British Israelism movement that made that up. It was the extremist group, the Ku Klux Klan members, the Christian identity movement that made up that theology, you know. And so even when you look at the One Westers in the 1960s, that's one of the reasons why they're so extreme. They're an extreme reaction to, the Ku Klux Klan, but yet they're just like black versions of the Ku Klux Klan, and so that's the reason why you have these snippets of One Westers or plenty of One Westers today, because of that extremism that came out of the Christian identity theology. So it's almost like the British Israelism movement. Yeah, that was like a soft core kind of thing, kind of like some of the Israelites today. They're like soft core. They've kind of calmed down. They're like, Jesus died for everyone, but you're still going to be second best in the kingdom, right? Now the One Westers on the other side, the bloodthirsty dudes, are like, nah, you're going to be slaves in the kingdom, and you're going to work for us forever. Well, that runs totally against the happily ever after of Revelation 21, where you get all kind of nations that are saved, right? This is what it says. Read Revelation 21. And they go in and out of the gates. They bring presents to God. Like, I don't see anyone being slaves. Well, and not only that, but in Book of Revelation, I think it was chapter 19, it says, look, and there will be no more death, and no more pain, and no more sorrow, and he shall wipe away every tear from your eye. How is that possible when you have people being your slaves forever? It doesn't make sense. They reach in Isaiah 14 to try to prove it. But if you read Isaiah 13, it basically confirms what Ezra wrote down, which was a fulfillment of Isaiah 13 and 14, which means no slavery for anyone in heaven.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot more that I could say about this. The fact is that the 10 tribes were never lost. I went through this whole presentation, on session number 5, and there's something that I always read, and I'll kind of read it to you guys, and it basically had a lot to do with Matthew 10, and this is something I point out all the time, right? because they always say, look, Christ said he's gonna, go. He's only gonna go to the lost sheep, right? That's what he says. It says, go not in the way of the Gentiles, and don't go into the Samaritans, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. There's a problem with that, because if you're saying that the 10 tribes were actually mistaken for Gentiles, and Jesus is saying, don't go in the way of the Gentiles, well, where are you going to find them if you're saying that they're mistaken for Gentiles? Well, obviously they must be among Gentiles to be mistaken for Gentiles as lost Israelites, right? Because that's what they say. They're lost Israelites, and the Gentiles say to man, and they're among the Gentiles. Well, Jesus said, don't go in the way of the Gentiles, which would be the only logical place that you could find them. He said, oh, don't go in the Samaritans either. Right? Well, isn't the Samaritans like part of the northern kingdom? He said, rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Well, the only other place that you could technically go is Judah. But what's the problem? Judah is not Israel according to them. No, to them they never mix. They're not used interchangeably. Nope. 10 tribes are the north, Judah is at the south. So there's no way that they would look for Israelites in Judah, right? If they're looking around Judah, they're only going to find Jews. That'd be silly to find someone who's an Israelite in Judah. So now you can't look there either. That's why I always end up saying, like, you know, how could the 12 tribes go to them if they were supposedly to be mistaken as Gentiles? That's why I asked a question, you know? And if the Jews being in Judah were, quote, not of the house of Israel, since it's claimed that the 10 tribes were not in Judah but were lost abroad, then to whom did the disciples go? And to whom did they preach if the Gentiles and Samaritans were not to be preached to? They're specifically told to go to the Gentiles and not to the Samaritans. So if they did not go to the Jews either, to whom were they sent to go? It begs a question. So this is the reason why their whole notion of, oh, Israelites are lost Gentiles. Well, that actually runs into a lot of problems. And I actually pointed this out um, yesterday, and I'm gonna point this out again today. Every time you're hit with that, I want you guys to go ahead and go to this passage here in First Thessalonians, and this is something that you can ask them. I'm gonna go ahead and just bring it up right here. I hope I'm not making y'all bored. Am I talking too much? Anyway, so if you look in First Thessalonians 2, verses 14 and 18, since they claim that these lost Israelites, we have to bring them to salvation. And the Gentiles, they really don't have any salvation. We're to do something else with them. Well, this verse right here just ruins everything. This is what it says. It says, "For ye, brethren, became followers of the churches of God, which in Judea are in Christ Jesus. For ye have also suffered like things of your own countrymen, even as they have of the Jews." Wow. So now we got the churches of God are suffering from their own Gentile countrymen and the Jews, who both killed the Lord Jesus and their own prophets and have persecuted us. So the Jews killed Jesus, the prophets, and they're persecuting the churches of God, the Christians. And they please not God. Well, yeah, I could understand why. And are contrary to all men. So these Jews, they just don't like anybody. Does that sound like some kind of Israelites we know today? Anyway, let me keep on going. Forbidding us to speak to the Gentiles that they might be saved. Like, whoa, wait a minute. This don't sound like the narrative of the One Westers. This doesn't sound like IUIC. This doesn't sound like all the people that are saying, y'all going into slavery. right? They want the Gentiles to go into slavery. They don't want them to be saved, which is the reason why every time they see the word saved, they have to somehow make it really say that saved really means slavery. They're going to be enslaved in heaven. That's their salvation. Like, but the Bible doesn't yield anything like that. To fill up their sins always, for the wrath has come upon them to the uttermost. What did Jesus say about people not believing in him? He said, he that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, and he that believeth not shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth on him. So Paul is basically saying the same thing that he learned from Peter, from what Peter learned from Jesus, that the wrath of God abides on the unbelievers. Who are the unbelievers? The non-messianic Jews. It says, but we, brethren, being taken from you for a short time in presence, not in heart, endeavor the more abundantly to see your face with great desire. Wherefore we would have come unto you, even I, Paul, once and again, but Satan hindered us. So either he's saying that the works that these Jews are doing are satanic, or he's just calling them Satan, right? No different than what Jesus was saying when he's saying, "Hey, look, you are your father, the devil. I mean, you're doing all this crazy stuff to the church. Come on." You know, this is the same thing that Paul did. He did persecute the church, but eventually he got his act together. So that's just a snippet. You know, I could have showed some other stuff. I don't want to talk too much, and you know, I feel like I did that. So I'm just gonna shut up for now. But I mean, if you guys got any other kind of questions and things,
Yeah, I kind of been wanting to say something for a while.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I've kind of wanted to talk about other things that when people fall into the Black Hebrew Israelite, they fall into many other dangerous theologies. And it was kind of stated earlier that they kind of fall into the trap of Jehovah Witness theology in some manners because they deny the deity of Christ. And I would like to kind of discuss this kind of issue. Where did the Black Hebrew Israelite movement get their teaching of non-Trinitarianism? That's kind of what I'm asking, really.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the movement, I mean, I think a lot of it just sprung off from traditional Judaism. You know, when they were trying to get back to their Jewish Hebrew roots or whatever. And when you do that, you run smack dab into non-Trinitarian Judaism. So that kind of crept into a lot of the camps that did, you know, come from Christian churches, and they were kind of searching for some truth. But when they ran into these kind of extremists, non-Trinitarians, um, they pretty much denied them, and they still held on to, you know, the Trinitarian theology. And so, yes, there's, you know, actually messianics and non-messianics, and usually all the non-Trinitarians are in the non-messianic area, you know, but there are some who are messianic who don't believe in the Trinity. So,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
but I think that even early Judaism, before Christianity arose, I still think that they affirmed some kind of version of a multi-personal God. You know what I mean?
They did, but not in the same sense you and I think of it. You heard about the two powers in heaven?
Yeah, of course. And that's what I'm saying. They affirmed some kind of version of a multi-personal God, not necessarily contradictory, more like not fully revealed yet.
Right.
So, of course, God in the Old Testament had not fully revealed himself because it wasn't time for the Holy Spirit to fulfill its purpose yet. In this case, to tell Jesus. But but I still think that there's plenty of things to talk about when we look into the heretical teachings of Unitarianism. Like, Have you ever talked to Jehovah Witnesses, or do you mainly deal with BHI? Surreal.
I mainly like deal with Black Hebrew Israelites, but I remember for about a few months I had Jehovah's Witnesses come over to my house, Sunday after Sunday, Saturday after Saturday. Um, and that was at a time when a good brother of mine, Tyree Griffey, I did some great evangelism with him. And yeah, we would try to show them certain things in the scriptures, um, especially about the Trinity. And I remember, and since there are a little bit of older members, um, I remember we would, you know, slowly trip them up. And no matter what we would say, they would end up saying, you know what, I can see that you are a very smart, dear brother, very wise brother, but we're going to ask that you pray. You pray about the stuff that you learn, and that God will reveal to you the truth. And that's what they would say. Like that would be it. And I remember the last time that they ever came over was when we would constantly show them what the actual Greek manuscript of certain verses actually say. And when we started doing that, immediately they kind of closed up the books, and they just gave us a head nod, and they just shook our hands, and they said, listen, you guys have a nice day. And all three of them, the two men and a woman, they just walked out of my apartment, and that was it. So
You'd be surprised the kinds of things that people will say. And I've dealt with Jehovah Witnesses myself because some of them have came to my door and we've had conversations about the Trinity. But it seems like a lot of times they're really just scared to talk about it when they can't defend it, especially since they can't defend it. Because honestly, refuting Unitarianism is really one of the simplest things I've ever seen. It's really easy to take the Bible out of context to try to prove it, but it's hard to take it in context to prove it. Like, what's the?
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's a lot easier for people to believe in these different conspiracy theories and get in the cults because it's easy. It's easy to accept, like, everybody is in on this mass conspiracy and this mass deception, and nobody knows except for me, and I'm the only one who has the truth. Instead of actually going through real scientific investigations and having affirmations where you have to build beliefs off of evidence, that's hard. It's not easy because you have to be open to new data and change your opinion constantly. Um, and I think what happens is these people, number one, you know what's really funny is I only see people accept like these different like weird, strange beliefs and cults and stuff like that. Um, and honestly, it's only people who happen to be religious. Like they all like I only happen to see like and I know this will like kind of be a different topic, but I only happen to see people who are religious believe in like aliens, right? I only tend to see people who are like more religious to believe in like the flat Earth creationist thing. Um, and so I think what happens is like they don't know how to differentiate their religious beliefs from their I guess you could even say like scientific and philosophical beliefs. They can't differentiate different fields. It's a very strange thing. Um, that's pretty much all I even really have to say. Um, I just think um the church hasn't done a really good job with teaching people how to think critically, and so we have a lot of different Christians believing certain things. Like I know I was talking to a guy who thinks that the president this was when Obama was president. He thought Obama might have been like a reptilian lizard or something.
What?
Oh, yeah.
You're joking.
No, like people really do believe this type of stuff. And it's because like us as Christians, we haven't done a good job with explaining to people like, yes, Christianity is a belief, but it's not a belief in the same way where like you believe the president is an alien or something like that. Christianity is a belief based off of evidence. That's why I believe it. And until we start like going back to like being thinking Christians, because like that's why my Facebook page is named what it's named, the religion of reason. We are the thinking religion. And it seems like so often like the people in like Jehovah Witnessism or Black Hebrew Israelite theology, um, it seems like their beliefs are contrary to free thought. Like they don't have the cognitive capacity to critically evaluate what they believe. You try and give them the evidence and tools, but they are so brainwashed into what they believe. It is very much synonymous with a fear they have, where if they disassociate themselves with a certain doctrine, I guess they believe that they're going to lose their faith. If you ever talk to a lot of these people in these cults, notice how they have all of the different evidences and reasons for why they believe it. But and as a matter of fact, Faithful and I, we were talking to a Black Hebrew Israelite friend of mine on Saturday, and I asked him, how would I go about falsifying this belief? I know you went and search for the evidence for why this belief is true, but have you looked at the cons? Have you looked at certain falsification predictions you made where you could probably come to the conclusion that this isn't true? How could you determine that what you believe is not true? Because, like, let's face it, we all at one time believe things that's not correct, right? And just because you change your opinion on it, it doesn't mean you're going to lose your faith or lose your religion or anything. It just means you're a fallible human, and we have certain methods in place so we can come to the truth. So that's what I see with Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and Black Hebrew Israelites. I don't think they're skeptical enough.
Yeah, because you should see this one guy or whatever who's an ex Jehovah Witness and bases his entire YouTube channel off of answering Jehovah Witnesses. His name is Brian Garcia, I think. He's really good at understanding the Jehovah Witness cult and all that stuff. But of course, the one thing I really don't like about it is that it's so easy to contradict, yet they still believe it, even when so many Christian scholars have been able to answer every one of their objections, like James White, Michael Brown. Who else is there? There's a Gary Habermas, N.T. Wright, etc. And it's like, I don't see how you can get any more closed-minded than that. And I remember there have been a few times I've had conversations with Unitarians, and I recently posted a video response to a man named the Trinity Delusion. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
He's a so-called ex-Trinitarian who and he's now a Unitarian, unfortunately. And now he makes videos answering Trinitarianism and trying to show that it's not biblical. And I made a video response to one of his videos when he eisegeted a passage in Joel chapter 2, verse 27. And I pointed out to him, I'm like, no, it is not saying that, this is not saying that only the Father is God. When it says, I am the God of Israel and there is no one else, that's not what it says. What it's saying is that there is only one God and I am the one God. That does not mean, therefore, only the Father is God. This is eisegesis. You know what I mean? What would you say to the guy?
To the guy who's a Unitarian?
Yeah, Trinity Delusion. What would you say to him if he were to bring up Joel 2:27?
Joel 2:27. What does that verse even say?
It's basically, when in context, it says, I am the Lord your God and there is no one else.
Well, first I would ask him, how would an ancient Jew interpret that verse? Secondly, What you say?
Nothing. I wasn't saying anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's number one. And secondly, I doubt that verse has anything to do with like the triunal, the Trinitarian nature of God, or even like a Unitarian nature of God. That verse, if I'm correct, has more to do with idolatry. So I don't understand how he could even make that correlation. That's just bad scholarship on his part. So
That's
either what you say?
that's exactly what I was like. This is, and I would say to someone, I said, and guess what someone said to me in the comment section? I commented on his video before I made the video response to him. I said, this is an example of eisegesis. This is proving monotheism does not prove Unitarianism. Trinitarians do not believe in three gods. That's a misrepresentation. This verse is simply affirming monotheism. This is simply saying that there is only one God. And then he brought up a lot of verses where that proved that it was the Father speaking, and I'm like, yes, it is the Father speaking. Trinitarians don't need to deny this, but you're making an eisegetical assumption here, and like you just said, this is very poor scholarship.
I always wanted to know, like, what do non-Trinitarians do with the fact that they literally had the word Godhead in the New Testament?
Uh-huh. And there are several verses that are very clear on the nature of God and what he is like. And of course the most confusing thing I ever saw was what Arius originally taught. Arius taught some really strange doctrines, and I gotta say, that was strange. And I can't and even a lot of people really hated him afterwards, didn't they?
Yeah, I just think we would avoid a lot of these doctrinal issues if the church stepped up and began to actually um teach true scholarship. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being religious. I'm a Christian, but at the same time, I don't think people should use their Christianity so they can flaunt their ignorance. If there's one thing I really dislike is talking to a Christian who is proud in the fact that they don't know anything about Christianity or they don't know like why they believe the stuff. Like it, it really pains me, um, because like of course like we all know Christianity is true, but like um
But
people have bad reasons for believing it. Like I hear people say all the time like I believe Christianity because I don't know I prayed to some saint and I found my dollar I lost or something silly like that.
yeah, and if somebody asked me why am I a Christian, I'd say, well, one, I believe that Christianity is true because I see evidence that Christianity is true, and I see plenty of evidence that other religions are false, especially Islam, because Islam is my specialty.
Why
Um,
can't Christianity just decide on you believing in Jesus Christ? Yeah, isn't that the point of Christianity, that Jesus Christ and what he said is true?
exactly, and I believe what Christ told me is true because I have reason to believe what he said is true. Yeah, I mean,
Now let me ask you this: how would you go about falsifying your beliefs? How would you go about seeing if your beliefs are false?
how mine are.
Right. How would you test your beliefs to see if they're true or false? How would you falsify it?
By other people
Well,
questioning and myself questioning. Go ahead.
well, I would say it depends. I would say, um, if it's an issue like maybe salvation or the Trinity or whatever, I would look in Scripture, say, do these passages really prove that the Trinity is true and stuff like that. That's kind of how I would go about it. Logical issues. On other issues like whether the Bible is true or not, I would look at evidence that is given for the position that the Bible is true and evidence for the contrary, in this case that the Bible isn't true, and see which one best holds true, I guess. So I guess I would, just like any other researcher would.
Okay.
I think
I
that,
guess.
and I think that belief and like reason, kind of both important. Now, people take like a Catholic position on that. They pretend like it's like two wings, faith and reason. You do kind of need both, and because it's like there are things in life where you're just gonna have to believe. People can prove to me that Jesus actually existed, but no one can actually prove to me that Jesus is God. That's something I have to believe.
Yeah, well, Scripture can prove he is.
See, you're missing
Well,
my point because I have to believe that.
Oh,
People could write a lot of things, and I could see that these writings do prove that this person actually existed because there's other people who wrote about this person who didn't give a care about Christians. So I got to use the same standards and be like, okay, they're just not writing things because they want to write him. Like, no, okay, Jesus existed. Yep. Now, was he God? That's something that I have to just believe. Now I could look at the scriptures, I can see a lot of things, right? Prophecy, things like that, saying he did this, did that, and yep. And I could see all those things come together. But once again, that's something that, you know, that you have to come to believe, and the Bible says, look, no one can confess that Christ is the Lord except by the Holy Spirit. And you never say anything by epistemological certainty. Even John said, we write these things, so that you would believe, and that in believing you would understand. And I think it's funny that in the West, it's like, whoa, 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 let's understand first, then I'll believe. And to them, it was like, no, we wrote these things so that way you would believe, not that you would have unfathomable reason, shadow of a doubt. No, like we want you to believe, and in your believing, you can understand. Totally backwards today in our the way we do things, but yeah, the way that they just kind of thought it was a little radically different from how we put things together today. You know,
well, yeah, we think more like in a scientific mindset today, right? But you can certainly believe in something and not have a full understanding of it. That's where your reason and your I'm sorry, your belief can bridge the gap between your reason and your evidence. So what I always tell people is I think it's reasonable to believe that Jesus rose from the dead, but as of now, we don't have enough supporting evidence to show how he rose from the dead. All we have, well, not all we have, but what we do have is the strong evidence that the tomb was empty. The disciples believed that he was dead, and he certainly did die on the cross. So that's what we have at our disposal right now, and that doesn't mean like in the future, um, scientists won't find out how somebody possibly
Well,
could be resurrected.
here's the thing. Now, you want to get down to the point of it, right? A lot of people don't believe that the women found Jesus in his grave. See, this is what starts the separation here. You ever heard this one before? 3 women found Jesus, not in his grave.
nah, I ain't never heard that one.
Nope. See, this is where different belief systems start to disagree.
You
Basically,
said
saying that
You said 3 women found him in his grave or didn't find him in his grave,
Didn't find him.
right? They didn't, right? He wasn't in his grave when they came,
Right.
right?
When they came, right? See, the thing is according to uh, William Lane Craig and a lot of biblical scholars, this is very significant. Any woman that was to claim blasphemy would be stoned to death in that day in Judaism. So, for a woman to claim that they found Jesus not in his grave was to risk being stoned to death.
Hmm.
Why would a woman do that? See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unless it was true, which the Roman guard found out that it was true. This is not a story. This is the truth.
Well, I don't think you could point anybody to the Gospels and show them the evidence as if it's fact, because you certainly do need to have a certain measure of faith. But I would
But
say it's a
why would these people convolute this story? It doesn't make sense that this story is convoluted or that it is made up or a bunch of people got together and made up this story. The people that wrote about the story don't agree with each other.
well, they certainly did.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it seems like they certainly did believe it, but that doesn't necessarily make what they're claiming true. Now, it does make your argument reasonable. Like, yeah, these people certainly believed it. Therefore, I'll believe it because they believed it really hardly. But I think the best supporting evidence for Christianity is the fact that number one, not only was there not a body, but something very insignificant that people overlook is when Jesus left his tomb, the cloth that they put over the body and stuff like that, it wasn't thrown away. Now, normally, if people are in a home invasion, what do they do if they're looking for something? They usually toss things around, right? And they, flip over tables and move things over. You never see anybody break into a house and they neatly fold the clothes and put them back together exactly how they were. They're in a rush, they're in a hurry. So they break in, they toss things around, they get money, and then they leave. But in Jesus' case, if it were a break in, they would have never neatly folded the cloth because they would have been in a rush. And I think that's very
Well, here,
odd.
let me explain mine real quick before I lose my point real quick. Is that Pontius Pilate and the Roman government wrote about Jesus, therefore Jesus is real.
Well, yeah, it's no debate Jesus existed, but like the argument then comes with
Right.
did he rise
Well,
from the dead?
whether he walked on water or turned water into wine is trivial compared to his resurrection. That's what John Lennox says that debated Richard Dawkins. You know, all this stuff is kind of trivial compared to whether he resurrected or not. Unfortunately, a lot of people did see him outside of his grave. There's a whole like group of people that noticed that the stone was moved. Not just the 3 women, but the Roman guard noticed that things weren't right. Either somebody stole his body, is what a lot of people think what happened. A lot of paganists and a lot of other people think that somebody stole his body, his physical body, or he actually did resurrect and move the stone. So
Well,
it depends
some
on.
people. So there's 2 more theories that just came out in the last couple of years. One theory says that, or one explanation says that Jesus never died. He simply fainted, and he basically faked his resurrection. I don't think that's reasonable though. After a guy gets whipped
I
like
just
40 some times, and
I don't
he
think
has
I don't think the physical body matters after that. I really do think Jesus came back and not in a physical body. Remember when he broke the bread in front of the apostles and he disappeared?
Yeah, but he also ate. Remember, he met him and he said, "Give me something to eat." It was a physical body.
But it was a physical representation of what a body should be, even though he can listen, God is limitless.
Yeah, but
I
I
don't doubt
just,
that Jesus Christ would commit in a physical body and then just disappear all of a sudden and say, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, he was there, but he wasn't there. He was there. He can. I mean, God is limitless. He can make things physically appear and not appear. It drove the apostles crazy. Could you imagine this happening to you right now? If Jesus Christ were to show up to you right now, like in a physical body? You know, that's what the apostles went through.
That is
No man would. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? That would drive you insane, wouldn't it? You would be insane. You know, all the apostles were martyred and killed almost and crucified and shit. They were all they were all driven insane at the thought of it was real. Why would these people do what they did? You know, if it wasn't real, that's what makes it. It would have to be something so cultish. You know, eh, Jesus Christ showed up in the flesh, like you said, to the apostles after his death.
right.
They poked. Remember when Peter poked his body?
that was Thomas.
I thought it was Peter.
It was
But
Thomas.
anyway, yeah. Well, after the Roman guards, you remember the hole that they left in him
Right.
in his side? Yeah.
By the way, just to remind
Thomas.
everybody, it is open mic night. Y'all talk about whatever the heck y'all want. Commercial over. Continue.
It was insane, though, right? You could think like if Jesus were to show up right now and you were to see the holes in his hands and stuff. Like I don't think Jesus exists like that now, though. He's beyond that point. He's you know, if you were to see Jesus, it's the way that Jesus would want you to see him. Yeah, that
Oh yeah.
just yeah.
Paul saw Jesus, right? And Jesus was he he had a radiance to him. There was a glow, and he went blind.
Yeah, you remember when he transformed, by the way? Remember
Right.
when
Right.
he
Right.
ascended to heaven? Like he was no longer the Jesus that they saw him. He was healed. I mean, that's the thing to me. When you see Jesus, a lot of people say, "Oh, you're going to see his bloody feet and his hands." I'm like, eh, maybe not. Maybe he's healed. Maybe there's no holes in his hands. It depends on how you want to see him. The apostles seen him with holes in his hands and holes in his feet and the holes inside, but he was still talking and alive to them, as if he didn't even know that he was pierced. The apostles saw him after the crucifixion.
Well, you know what will make things interesting? Say like a couple years from now, archaeologists found some books, some you could say some counter gospels that were legitimate,
Right.
like written by people who really didn't know Jesus. Because I know there are like Gnostic gospels, but they aren't
Right.
legitimate. But if we found some actual counter gospels written by other people who knew Jesus and they were like, yeah, Jesus was he's a terrible person and he cursed a lot and like that would make things interesting. Then you could probably falsify Christianity. Um,
But there is no books like that. I
yeah,
mean, there's books that say that Jesus had children with Mary
yeah,
or
but
whatever,
yeah,
whoever.
but like the people who that was like years later, hundreds of years later.
Way later, extra biblical Gnostic books.
Yeah,
The reason that they're thrown out of the Bible, even the book of Enoch, is it? Yeah, which is a great book. I've read it all. I love it. Ezekiel's wheel is pretty interesting. Ezekiel's wheel. It sounds like a crazy thing, right? But a lot of this things that happen in the Bible can't be proved by science. The flood and whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things in the Bible that we got to look at as things that may have happened, but they may have happened in a time that doesn't exist in the timeline that we exist in now. I mean, it's like looking at a different X-Men universe, right? You know what I'm saying? It's a different time. It's something that happened before, right? Maybe it happened in our timeline, but it has affected us in a certain way that we don't understand.
If that's the case, if this has this stuff happened in a
It's
whole
Matrixism, yeah.
right, but I'm
Yeah.
saying if this stuff happened in a whole different timeline bracket, then how the heck do we even why do we even have these kind of like areas of archaeological stuff on our planet and our
I guess it's kind of a Men in Black thing. Okay, you remember Men in Black where they flash you with that little thing, that makes you forget all of your memory and stuff? Okay,
so far I don't remember anything happening like
right,
that this
right.
planet ever.
Okay. I do remember in the Bible at the time it was called the Tower of Babel, where God made them forget.
Well, God didn't make them forget anything. All He did was make sure they couldn't understand what the heck they were saying to each other.
That
And
they
after
couldn't
that,
they couldn't do that again. Yeah, yeah.
they all just kind of packed up and went home.
That's
But
kind of a Men in Black thing, though. Like telling them that, hey, it's not going to work. Yeah.
I know, but the issue is if you play the Tower of Babel, I think they remembered everything. I just don't think they can understand what the heck they were saying.
Well, they shouldn't have built it in the first place. There's no way off of the planet. I think they finally realized that building the Tower of Babel was pointless.
Well, okay, bro, you lost me.
Well, I mean that's what God says is like, in the Bible he says that the Tower of Babel, the reason that he separated them was because they thought they were gonna get, somewhere else. The reason they were building the tower was so they can get off of the planet
No, 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 no,
into
no.
heaven.
No, 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 no,
The,
no, 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 no. They wanted
the
to exalt themselves.
yes, yeah, that's the original context of the story. So the original context is they were trying to they were trying to summon Yahweh.
Exactly.
Okay, that
That's
well,
that's what exactly. Yeah.
well,
It's like they thought that they could get off of the planet and make this whatever it is they're going through stop by
no, no,
building this tower.
no. The best way I could explain it is if you ever seen Aladdin, where Aladdin takes out this lamp and he rubs it and the genie comes out. That is the same way people thought of these temples, because the Tower of Babel wasn't like the only tower of its kind. Like and also the Tower of Babel wouldn't have been that tall. Um, sorry, it would have been about like 15 feet. Um,
Right. It was to escape reality. That's what I keep, like you just said. It was to get off of this planet, to stop, like to build a tower towards Jesus, that they didn't need to live on the planet under anymore. They could just live in their ivory tower,
well,
basically.
well, actually, my point was actually the opposite. Um,
Yeah.
when they made the Tower of Babel, it was so they could summon God. Like you know how Aladdin he summoned genie. He rubbed the lamp and genie came out. And so, in the same sense, like that's what they thought of when they were making these towers, because a tower was made so you could summon a god, right? So like the Tower of Babel isn't the first tower people built. People had towers like that everywhere, but that
Ah,
specific
you're comparing Christianity and Judaism to other towers that were built. Like,
What?
no, I got you. Yeah.
He's not.
no
Okay.
that was the culture. That's what they did in the culture, and so like in Near Eastern culture every god had a temple. And so they were making a temple for Yahweh. And Yahweh says, no, 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 I don't want you guys to make me that type of temple. You guys are gonna have me in the Ark of the Covenant and etc. That's why you see in a couple chapters later.
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
chapter where God says, "Building a tower to heaven ain't gonna help you." That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
The Tower of Babel probably was just going to be, and it was probably going to be an abnormally large ziggurat.
Yeah, it ain't gonna get you any closer. The point was to get closer to heaven. That the higher the temple was, the closer to God you
Let
were.
me read it.
See what I'm saying? That was like the Italians. I don't know if you ever seen like
No.
you know
Well, what
it a lot.
happens because we're so distant from the people who wrote the story, like the culture. I can understand why people think that. Like, for example, like the flood story. I can understand why people think what they do about the flood, but like the culture was different. And so the best way to understand the Bible is to first understand the cultural context behind it.
Yo, I'm gonna leave the hangout up, but I gotta get up in the morning. You know,
Aw, dang it.
y'all
I think I'm gonna be out of here today. I gotta get up early tomorrow too. I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye, Wayne. Hey, Surreal.
I'll still leave it up though.
Hey, Surreal. Is it's okay that later you give me a rundown of Black Hebrews White theology?
Um, yeah, sure. I mean, I could definitely do that. You know, maybe on a
Different day?
probably tomorrow night or something like that. You know, I'll just invite you in and we could just do a little bit of one-on-one, man. And depending on what you ask me, will depend on what kind of slides I might put up, maybe even some stuff that I ain't never put up yet. But yeah, you know, we could definitely do that, man. I'll see if we can do something tomorrow night.
Thank you.
All right, no problem, man. All right, everybody. Uh, peace and blessings. And if I see the chat end up being empty, then I'll shut it down. Till then, peace, y'all. It's been great. Thank y'all for coming.
See you, brother.
Okay, let me find it.
I'm not sure if I met you before, but you are a Christian, correct?
Yeah,
All right. What kind of Christian are you?
non-denominational.
Oh, just like me. I don't think we should have too many disagreements then. I get what you're saying. I think I more agree with you. It's just the way that we talk about it. That less or more, you know, if you want to think. I'm not trying to debate about it. It's definitely the same kind of belief system. Like, are you a Donald Trump hater? Or a liberal? Or an
No.
SJW? You know what I'm saying? So there you go. I guess we agree then. All right. So there we can start.
I think that Donald Trump can say. I think that Donald Trump can say sometimes some bad things, some
Well,
stupid
yeah,
things.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he is a dumbass, but I mean, we need a dumbass. We've had so many dumbasses. We need like the ultimate dumbass.
To make the ultimate meme.
The ultimate dumbass, and he has become the meme god. You know what I'm saying? Every meme on the planet has been spawned out of this political debate right now.
So many of these beautiful memes.
Triggered feminists are the best ones. You ever seen the triggered feminist meme?
I've seen some of the special snowflake memes.
Yes, they're awesome. Oh my god, why do people get so upset? Like they're so they're religious about their political beliefs. Can I phrase it that way? They're like, if you talk shit about Hillary Clinton, it's a religion.
I just installed the religion of bad policies. I insulted the religion of of corruption and bad policies.
Oh man, Milo Yiannopoulos, Ben Shapiro, Gavin McGinnis, Lauren Southern. I could name off the names of the heroes of anti-SJW weirdo.
Sargon of Akkad.
Bearing, you know Bearing?
A little bit, yes.
Another dude on YouTube is called Wrecked Feminist Videos with a K.
That guy was awesome.
Every time you see his videos, he's like, "What's up, cunts and fags? Welcome to my video daily cancer."
But one of my favorite ones. I kind of like it how he also made like the compilation video. Like he's like the grandpappy of compilation videos. You know what I'm saying? These tops you can't it was either him or you can't stump. It was either his wrecked feminist video, wrecked feminist compilation, or you can't stump the Trump.
Listen,
Like,
I have a wife. I have a wife and a 2-year-old kid. She loves me to death. I don't tell her what to do. In fact, she tells me what to do. She doesn't cook. I cook. So I mean, this whole feminist wage gap and how women are supposed to cook and be in the kitchen and a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense in modern society. Um, I live in a different kind of relationship where that doesn't. You can't just tell a woman to go in 1940s style. Hey, this is the way it's gonna work. You're gonna get in the kitchen, Shay, and bake me some pie, Shay. It doesn't.
go in
I
and
don't
make
know
me a
where.
sandwich.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't. It does. You go and make this exactly sandwich thing. They. I don't know where they're coming from, but a lot of modern traditionalist families, right? It's a compromise. I mean, the woman works, the man works, the kid is usually taken care of by the elders. That's the way I grew up. It's a common thing. I don't know where they're coming from with this whole like feminist wage gap. First of all, my wife makes twice as much as I do. I have a networking degree.
Mm-hmm.
I just got out of college and I'm still trying to find my niche in computer science and stuff. So she is a hairdresser, makes tips, and she makes about like let's say like I make 500, she makes 1,000 or something compared to what I do. She makes twice as much. Because she is a woman, she gets tips. Because I'm a man, I don't get tips, but I make like just as much as she does per hour. So it's because she provides a service that I don't like, that I'm not actually getting tips at, and a lot of companies that I would work for would let you actually get tips because it's against the rules. You work for a company. Anyway, it, it becomes pretty odd when people start talking about this little gap thing between men and women, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't understand. Women in my company where I work for an ISP dominate. You know why? Because they're better at talking to people than men are.
Hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. They're perfect conversationalists. They can sell anything. They can sell ice cream to an Eskimo. Excuse me, you're not allowed to use the word Eskimo anymore because that's racist. I mean, it gets. Trust me, bro. It's like the way that you talk right now. Remember in the '90s? You can't talk that way anymore. Since the Eskimo, you mean indigenous people? I'm like, I'm done identifying people as ice cream cones and whatever the hell they want to be, and whales and buns, and
Did you
it's
see
just
that?
yeah.
Did you see that one cringy video from Bill Nye?
Yeah, it was insane. Bill Nye, the science wannabe by whatever the hell he is. Oh my God.
Bill Nye, the undergraduate.
Gender is a spectrum. Gender is a spectrum.
Hey.
Yeah.
Bill Nye, the undergraduate degree guy.
Yeah, the guy that does, yeah, the
Who has a
mechanical.
degree? He's got mechanical engineering under his belt.
And yeah, he can describe climate change and gender neutralism and how the way gender is a spectrum. When he had that girl sing that song, that was the cringiest moment ever. That girl singing that song,
Oh gosh,
it was so bad.
that makes me want to actually go absent. That actually makes me want to go absent. I mean, like, not even get married for the rest of my life for that thanks to that
Let
song.
me let me add you to my friends room here because we talk about that stuff all the time. We have a 24/7 gaming room if you're into gaming, and we talk about that stuff exactly. So what is your name? Christian man?
Yeah,
No, I thought I knew who you are. Let me
we met a while back ago in
find-
Lennox's room, but it was New Year's Eve.
Gotcha. Hey, New Year's Eve. It's like Tony Stark all over again. All right.
Hmm.
I have my times, man, and everything. Everything gets insane, and I'm just so done. Like I'm ready to just work, work, work. Like I said, all I know is get money. All I know is get paper. I'd be flexing on them haters. I don't care anymore. God knows what's right for me, and all God tells me is to just keep grinding your nose to the grind wheel, keep making money, and don't care about what people say about you. As long as you're doing good, you're happy. Your job may not be happy, but whatever. That's what it is. Nobody's happy. You're never going to be successful the way that you want to be. That's up to him, not you. As soon as you let him in control, then you don't have to worry about anything anymore. It's great. You don't have to strive. And, that's the problem for me is I struggle with that kind of thing. Like, do I keep going full save Trinity Neo mode, or do I just sit back and relax and let the money flow in? I think struggling to survive makes it worse. You know what I'm
Hey,
saying?
Neo, what's one of the worst atheist arguments you've ever heard?
Um, okay. Here it is. God and science can't coexist.
That's a claim.
Well, that's an argument.
No, that would be a claim, but what's their argument for that though, for that claim?
Well, the argument is that evolution and God can't coincide together.
Well, theistic evolution just debunks that out of the water, but anyway.
Right. Basically, that design and code is no longer designed because they no longer use the word code. Is that okay? You talking atheist? Okay, atheists say that they have an origin for the Big Bang. What let's just say beyond the Big Bang, like a theological standpoint or a philosophical standpoint is where you're going. Not a scientific one, because I mean, at that point we're talking about philosophy. Isn't I could have swore science is based off of philosophy. Anyway, uh,
It's based off
right?
knowledge.
Yeah. Meaning you have to have a model to come up with something to believe in that actually works by using science. I don't know. Anyway, the worst atheistic argument against God was basically is that uh, uh, it was like God can't exist because animals suffer.
What?
That was it.
Because of animal suffering?
Yeah.
What is it, an argument from vegan gains?
No, it was actually a backslidden Christian named MK.
MK. He said that God couldn't exist because he hurt
Animals suffer because God hurts animals. If a
What?
God was so great and so good and so moralistic, he wouldn't let animals suffer.
What?
And I said, little children die across the planet every day. 6 years old, 5 years old, never had mothers, don't know the difference between morality, good and bad. 2-year-old children die all across the planet. How much is your body worth compared to a sparrow? Jesus. You gotta be kidding me. That you're less worth than an animal? That's where I started to grab him at. I think he got it, when I started to say what Jesus said. Two sparrows ain't worth your body. God thinks of you as more special than animals.
Mm-hmm.
You are way more special than animals to God. You have a soul. You have cognitive thoughts. You think of good things and bad things. Animals do what they're supposed to do. They're designed to do what they're supposed to do. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. You have a choice. You can choose to not choose God or not. Animals don't have that choice. That's what separates animals and humans. Duh. Yeah. Animals and humans are separated by choice. They don't make choices. A monkey doesn't one day say, I don't want to be a monkey. You know what a human says one day? I want to be a furry. I want to be a transvestite. I want to be gay. I want to be whatever the hell. You know what I'm saying?
Are you? How dare you misidentify that creature who wants to sexually identify as an ice cream cone?
How dare you identify me as a man? I identify as an attack helicopter.
That was a good one.
Lauren Southern is the queen of all anti-SJW, wannabe, non-binary. I don't care. She identified as a man in Canada. She is legally a man in Canada. Legally a man. So this girl was stumped by her. This little SJW girl asked her, she said, there's a bunch of dudes in there and I don't appreciate that. And you're the only woman that's in there. She said, by the way, I'm legally identified as a man.
That was awesome.
Oh my god! She was, and then they'd use that Windows symbol. Dun 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 ding dun 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 dun. The shutdown noise.
Man, the point
I
is
love
real.
it. It was epic, man. Oh my god! Why do these people think that they can just get away with anything that you want to say? I could say anything that I want to say due to free speech, but it has to make sense. If I want friends, I'm not gonna. Look,
I'm not gonna believe that I'm from
Mars.
or I'm gonna use that term cisgender.
Yeah. Cisgender was made up as a term to put down people that are traditionalists.
That term is actually used against people who are actually actually male and female.
Yeah, cisgender, meaning that you actually identify as somebody that has sex with a female as a male, and you're regular, like a straight person. It's basically the SJW word for straight.
It's the equivalent of the N word, basically. We should call it's basically the equivalent to calling straight people the N.
Exactly. That's what I keep saying to myself. I'm like, what? You gotta join my other room, man. Oh my God, we talk about this stuff all the time. These people don't get what the word, like Lauren Southern and Gavin McGinnis and everybody. Oh my God, you should see the way that they destroy these people left and right.
I've seen
Joe
some of them.
Rogan does this stuff all the time. You can't understand that these people are. I can understand why they're mad. I have a $30,000 college student loan. They probably have something worse than I have. I get it. They weren't grandfathered in. They probably don't have a bright future. Um, there's not a whole lot of options for people in New York and LA. That's why a lot of liberal wussies come out of that kind of area. And a lot of people depend on the government for food stamps and things like that. And they want the rest of America to pay for it. They want you and your white America family that is successful, even though you struggled to get there,
or
to
better
pay
yet,
for their. Yeah.
or better
Yeah.
yet, they also want to suck up the wealth from their own people. I mean, think about it.
Because the problem is not them, not the reason that they don't want to succeed. Because there's a lot of people that are Puerto Rican, Mexican. I can name doctors and Asian people that are doctors and very successful lawyers and people of all colors. In fact, the guy that's in Congress right now, you know who Jason Chaffetz is?
No.
Oh my God, he's basically his family is from immigrants, and he is the chairman of the board. He used to be. I don't know if he is now anymore. Jason Chaffetz is like Trey Gowdy's right hand man in the Congress, and basically, he had to struggle too. He said, "My family struggled to get here too. I'm lucky to be here. You should be lucky to be here, just like me. Don't ever doubt." I'm the top of Congress and I'm an immigrant. Like my family was immigrant. Don't complain to me about how you're an immigrant and you can't make it because you're an immigrant. Come on. Everybody makes it in America. You can't. This is the America of the free. This is the whole point. This is the whole point of this board here. This is the whole point of America. Don't let anybody stop you. Why are you're stopping yourself? You're saying I'm an immigrant and I'm never going to make it. That's your problem, not ours. That's an internal conflict that you need to get over, not us. Yeah, we can't solve you doubting yourself. How do we change the laws to make you think that you're going to better yourself? That's what he said. That was Jason Chaffetz right off of the bat. The dude who is an immigrant, his family is immigrants, top of the Congress, basically saying, you need to stop doubting yourself. You need to stop blaming the rest of America for your problems. Your problems isn't. I understand. There is a lot of problems in America right now, but we can't change laws to make you feel better about yourself.
Yeah. I do have
Imagine if you were an immigrant to a different country. Imagine if you're an immigrant to, like, let's say, Israel or something. You think they're going to show you the same kind of gratitude? Imagine if you're an immigrant to, like, let's say Germany. They have a much more rigorous process than we do. Yeah. In fact, Canada has one of the most rigorous processes when you cross from the U.S. border to Canada.
How about Mexico's immigration?
Well, a lot of people don't understand that there was already a wall. It was a very faulty, bad wall. There's already a wall that they dig under, that they cross over. They drive their trucks right over this fence that we have up right now. like drug dealers drive their trucks right over the fence that's up right now.
Hmm.
What Donald Trump proposed is that we replace the fence with a big concrete structure that has little ports in it that lets people legally cross through without driving over. I don't see why that's a bad idea. I get the whole point of, oh, you're talking Nazism, oh, you're talking like, oh, you're getting into like Judge Dredd era, and I'm like, yeah, we are. We're getting to the point to where Judge Dredd era. We're getting to the point to where people are going to try to get into this country and bomb Boston bombing shit. You know what I'm saying? We gotta eventually somebody's got to stop the nonsense. I don't care if it's Donald Trump. I don't care who it is. Somebody. I don't care about building a concrete wall, that still ain't going to stop the problem, and you know it. They're going to drive bombs into that wall.
I do.
Eventually, yeah.
In your when it comes to some people who identify themselves as liberals, why do they believe in some strange and some immoral things?
Well, if somebody wants to get across the wall, they're gonna do it. It doesn't matter how concrete it is or how high it is. You know, that's the whole point. If they're determined to get drugs across or prostitution or whatever the hell they want to get across, I'm not talking about Mexicans. I'm talking about anybody. They will exploit that border to do whatever it means to make sure that they want to kill America. They don't like America. These people here don't like America. They hate America. That's free speech. You're allowed to go out there and scream, I hate America. I hope it dies, it burns. And you could burn an American flag right now. That's free speech.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like, well, I disagree with you, but I mean, I can't stop you from. Why do you want to burn an American flag? What is so wrong with America that you would want to do that? See what I'm saying? I think that's where we got to understand people is like, how are they so indoctrinated to the point to where they hate America so bad? Like, what is so wrong with America?
Hmm.
I understand there's a lot of problems with America. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I think 9/11 might have been some kind of convolution of shit. Who knows? But what I'm saying is, you know,
I'm gonna leave, okay? But it was nice talking with you.
hey,
It's like 11:40 where I'm at. I have to go to bed.
I do too. I gotta go to bed too. So,
Night. God bless.
see you. God bless you.
Damn shame I couldn't ask. Why not just kill ourselves here and now? But now they're gone. Question will never be answered.